But you know what? What I'm going to do is share with you the from experience, from the experience of personal experience. So um, I was going to start with a joke and just say, "Oh no, I'm not prepared." This is what mental preparation is about. With we think it's all about the physical. I've got every note. I've practiced every note. I know it perfectly. And when it comes to the moment of truth, this is what I want to help you with is with how to process the performance before the performance comes, how to get yourself prepared. Oh my goodness, and my phone goes off. How to get yourself prepared. Um, okay, I'm just going to start with this, what I wrote. We learn how to play our instrument, but not necessarily how to perform. We practice so many hours, but we don't know how to use those many hours or years, well, and years, to the fullest on stage in performance. After all the technical preparation and work, all the work that we put into it, there's potential to fall apart. And why? So, what I would like to talk about, I'm sorry, I got a phone call during that time, forgive me. One that I didn't need to answer, but now I can't get back into the big screen. Huh.
Can you click on the Zoom? Is there a Zoom app? It should pop up maybe at the bottom of your screen.
At the bottom of my screen. Yes, yes, yes. There we go.
The
Oh,
Zoom.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Okay, things happen, right? Just like now.
Distractions.
Things happen in life, in live in the moment. So to be able to get out of it, and when you have someone very helpful like Corinne Smith, but also to keep focused. That's what I'd like to talk about is the mental preparation for the performance. We all know what goes into the physical, like choosing our program, begin learning the notes, begin learning everything, doing slow practice with all the bells and whistles kind of preparation, like rhythms, different varieties of rhythms, even odd, doing this section, this bar backwards or something, or playing for memory, one bar or one phrase or one section, and then you always come back to the music, and then you need to ask yourself, are you using your time wisely? And learning the inner workings of the piece. So there's a self awareness that I'd like to talk about that we don't necessarily like to or not like to, or want to spend the time um, looking at it with understanding that we need to build up a positive psyche. We are so quick. In fact, we are geared to listen to the negative voice in our head. And instead of building ourselves, tearing ourselves down, we need to think about building ourselves up. Um, First of all, I'd like to talk about just some kind of technical thing that you can do with the mental preparation, obviously, with imaging the performance. That's something we don't necessarily get into where we're just, again, thinking about playing perfectly, um, playing all the notes. But to imagine yourself in the hall, in the venue, imagine yourself backstage waiting, imagine the audience that's out there waiting. Imagine yourself what you're doing backstage, what you're wearing. Try to like actually put yourself in that situation. It's a high stakes, not high stakes. It's a high pressure career. It really is, with waiting backstage, going out and doing the performance, and not only trying to do your best, but trying to actually inspire people or like play the piece to the best of your abilities. Not perfection again, but playing it to the best of your abilities. Um, One thing that I'd like to suggest is when you're either before a practice session or when you're backstage, is to I'm going to expand or I'm going to add to what Corinne was talking about with the breathing. That was interesting for me to try that because it went shorter and shorter. Mine goes the other way. It goes longer and longer. So these are two interesting ways I think that we could approach this because it's a matter of what I'm talking about is a matter of grounding. What Corinne was talking about was being able to sustain phrases a bit longer. And what I'm talking about is being able to get your physical being grounded because we are going to be nervous. It's just a fact. But nervous is not necessarily a bad thing. Nervous, we can harness that nervous energy into um, an energetic and inspiring performance. We can harness it. It doesn't mean that we're not prepared. It means that we're excited, actually. Um, but breathing with taking in a breath, starting with the 4 counts, and then letting it out, and then waiting. Taking in another breath, hold it in for a couple of seconds, and then let it out. Do this 10 times, each time holding on a little bit longer and before releasing. And you'll find after about 10 times that your breath has gotten so long in between, the amount of time in between from one breath to the next, the breathing has relaxed and your body has actually started opening and relaxing for the performance. And so I've tested this on my guinea pigs, I mean my students, and I I'm very interested to find. I know what it did for me, but it's very interesting to hear from my students that this kind this kind of breathing really helped a student of mine who did her first concerto performance just about a month ago. And she said that was something that she was able to do just alone because we get distracted with things. We can get distracted and sort of hyper. And that means also the air is going higher in the body. So we're not settled, we're higher. The air is higher. So if we are to think about just closing our eyes, getting rid of the distractions, getting into your own zone, and doing the breathing, that is going to be an exceptionally um, positive mental preparation that you can do. It's also physical, but a mental because your brain is calming. Um, Garrett, I was wondering if you would do me a favor and screen share, if you're there right at this moment, there's a paper I sent to him by Leon Bizey, who gave this this reading list.
Yeah,
And
I can share it for you.
can you? Thank you,
Mhm.
Corinne.
I'm also
Thank,
going to put it in the chat as well so people can put it in there on their
there's
own
a,
get up.
yes,
Yep.
thank you. Leon Bizey put together this sensational list of reading on mental preparation. And there's one of my favorite, thank you, authors, who is Don Green, who actually teaches master classes, has for a while at Juilliard. This is where I studied. I didn't have the benefit of taking his classes there, but I have read, and he's written articles, and it really resonates with me. Musicians prone to pre performance jitters are surprised to discover their goal is not to relax, like relax, relax, we're told, but rather to control the physical and mental effects of stress and harness that energy into a great performance. Not thinking I need to do perfectly, but thinking more about I'm going to do the very best that I can right now. I'm going to do the, I'm just going to do the best. That's all I can do right now. So it is basically a mind over matter thing. And what I forgot to say at the beginning was that I really would like this to be an interactive class. It's the way I teach is I like to have questions and I like to be able to discuss because it opens up other avenues as well. Um, Another thing about, I was talking about the imaging, about putting yourself in the situation of performing, of being in the venue, in the where the people are. And then also when you're preparing your music, when we sometimes are so tired, we're exhausted, we can actually push ourselves to a negative place in our mind. It's not happening, or also exhaustion. Like we just get completely fatigued. This is something I've discovered through international competition preparation and recitals. And what I discovered was I need to pace it. Now, if I'm practicing, I need to just stop. But I want to continue practicing. So, does anyone have an idea of what I might do? If I can't, what if I'm too tired to play? My lips have become like rubber. My hands, my fingers are too tired. What I recommend is reading the music like a book. Reading it before you go to bed at night or while you're in bed going to sleep. You've got the visual of the notes, you're reading the music, you're hearing it. This is a huge part of the mental preparation that we don't really zone into as much because we think it's more we just have to get the fingers moving. It'll get better, it'll get better. But in reality it could get worse many times. And I've heard people playing through something just before going on and doing either their audition or their performance, and they make a mistake. They're practicing it fast, and then that's not the time we want to make a mistake and psych ourselves out. So it's more about, oh my goodness, I'm not practicing what I'm preaching right now because my mind is going many different places. So I apologize. I'm going to take some questions. How about that? Talk, 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 talk. One of my, yes? Please speak out if you,
Okay. No, I was going to say that I've been working a bit, and I can't see myself. I've been working a bit lately with not only imagining um, in a positive way, but imagining where I might make mistakes and then like figuring out how I can prepare myself for when I make those mistakes. So it's not really a negative thing. It's more like, okay, this might happen. And then how am I going to feel and how am I going to react in the performance? Because we're going to make mistakes in performance. And I found that that was a big thing for me. And another thing is taking time and space and being really aware when I'm practicing as to how I'm feeling and how I'm talking to myself. And catching as soon as I start getting really negative and tensing up and just going and taking space and then coming back.
that's excellent. Yeah, we can, I think, I don't know if we can think, okay, I'm going to do this if I derail, or if something happens, I'm going to do exactly this, right? What we can do is when there is a certain section you're talking about, is to, in our practice sessions, and also reading it like a book, um, we can go over that section slowly. Slow practice is the key. All the professionals I know, we all practice slowly. And in different, what I was saying, the physical part of it, doing different rhythms. There's da, 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 or da, 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 da. So doing opposite rhythms, adding varieties, da, 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 or da, 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 da. I mean, just there are, as we know in all the practice books, there are an endless combination of articulations. Doing it backwards, add one note each time. And what you're doing is you're spending a few minutes, maybe it's 10 minutes, on this one specific thing that you are concerned about. And when you've spent that time on the specific phrase, when you come to it again, there's a much greater confidence of playing it when you're coming to it, because now you've actually played it through about 50, 60, 70 times in 10 minutes, just this one little thing with different rhythms and different. So that is going to give you a different kind of confidence, because it's going to be ingrained in your fingers, it's going to be ingrained in your brain. So when you come to this, and let's say something does happen in that very spot that you're coming up to, there's much greater chance of getting right back on. This happened to me. I got off on one note on a concerto, but I got right back on. So this happens. This happens. And so we can't plan for this and decide, okay, if this happens, I'm going to do this. But it's like when you do this kind of very specific kind of zoned in focused practice on what gives you a bit of a problem or an issue, then it's going to be more ingrained when you spend the time, as opposed to worrying about, I hope it doesn't happen. You're actually addressing does that help, Kathy?
Yeah, I think I actually spoke about it wrong, because that's exactly what I was trying to talk about. It's not about worrying about that something will happen. It's preparing for, preparing my mindset and preparing for how it would happen. And I'm going to expand. I was writing in the chat that in addition to using different rhythms and whatever, using improvisation and just completely playing around. And I find that with my students and with myself, it helps them to understand the underlying harmony and underlying structure of the music as they start playing with the music more.
Absolutely. What you're doing is now you're starting to actually learn more about what the piece is about, not just about these notes. So it's really is much more in depth, and it's just a huge preparation tool that many of us don't. I will play something for my students slowly, and I show them what it is I'm wanting to hear, and then they come back and play it the same tempo they were playing before, and I said, is that what you heard? Like, can you please play it? If I'm playing it slowly, it's for a reason. Now if I'm playing, I don't have to play it slowly, you do. Like play it slowly. And that's something that people don't um, want to spend the time for. We're impatient. This is very natural. We want to get it. We want to get it right away. And so I just want to say that the slow practice is incredible in helping with the mental too, because then you build your confidence, and you just know that you have it. Okay, I'm going all over the place. So when we're talking about the actual mental practice to it too, is that I've been asked many times about how many hours I practice, and it's really, the answer is really all the time, pretty much, because obviously I don't have the flute in my hands, but it's happening here in my brain. And I have to say that until I understood what was going on, it was driving me crazy, because I thought, I can't get this piece out of my mind. I would feel the notes changing in my brain. And so I now realize that it was practicing. It was mental practicing, whether I was washing the dishes, whether I was driving a car, walking down the street, you can be practicing. So we don't actually take into account the that kind of practice, which is extremely important. That's the mental part of it. Let me see about getting to any. Oh, going for a walk and clearing our head. Thank you. Yes. So my tension comes, someone says, what other people think of my playing. And that's not an easy one, I have to admit. But the the more you compare yourself to you, was that the best that I can do? You know, asking ourselves these questions. Am I doing do I think it can be better? To ask ourselves. The answer will almost inevitably be yes. But I want you to remember also that sometimes it's no. Sometimes it's like, that was pretty darn good, and I'm going to move on now. But so give yourself the credit where it's due, and then also say, okay, I don't think that is the best I can do. I can always do better. So that's what you're doing, is you're reinforcing positive. You're reinforcing positive thoughts, and just, you know, we're going to hear people playing everywhere that sounds better. In a class I give online, there's some quotes that I come up with for the insightful performer, and it's like, it's we hear other people doing something that we think is a lot better than what we're doing, and we feel that that is a negative thing. If we are to actually change it into kind of a healthy, competitive process, where that I can't do that. Oh, I think I can do that. I will do that. You know, we can just really get the mind working forward in a positive way. And you know what? This is a learned skill. It's not something that happens just overnight. It's a learned skill. The first thought that comes into our mind is most likely negative, critical. And as soon as we learn to just turn that around and say, okay, no, I'm not going to think that way. I'm going to start thinking that, like, in the positive direction, that I can do it. And that's something that is really going to start building. You're going to start pushing that thought away right away. And that's actually that kind of thinking with a positive, no, I'm not going to let myself think that negative thing. The new normal is going to be, I can do it, and I'm going to do it. It's a real positive approach, and it really does help build the self-esteem. And so that would be something I would highly recommend. In mental practice, are you feeling how your body is moving, or mostly thinking it in your head? That's a very good question. And I think I'm not thinking about how my body is moving. I'm thinking about the music. I'm just thinking about the music. And so I think if we can get out of ourselves, we have to do the imaging. We have to put ourselves in that situation, but then to also get out of ourselves and think that this is not about what I'm wearing. This is not about this or that, which is on the outside. But this is about how meaningful am I going to make this piece. In my opinion, it's all about the music. Yes, it's about the person also performing it, but it's all about the music. So I would say thinking about The music. What mindfulness strategies do you practice to stay in the moment during performance? After we've put in the work in the practice room. Mindfulness strategies. I I actually see the music in my head, so I'm not sure. Does anybody else see the music in their head? Do you see the notes? Do you see the I see the page numbers, I see the dynamics, I see the maybe a marking or two. I can't see everybody else. Is there, or is anybody else sometimes? Because I don't know what one would call it, but maybe it's, I don't think it's called a photographic memory, but I think it's, I'm able to visualize. And so, let me see. When we're trying to get ourselves in the moment, I guess the mindfulness things that you're talking about is what I was talking about with doing the deep breathing and how it helps when it brings you out on stage. It doesn't mean that you're not going to be nervous. It just means that you're going to get your body more grounded. And then building up your psyche, that you've done everything that you can up to this moment. It's positive critique. It's not like we just listen always to that negative voice, and to just try to push that one away and say, no, go away. I have done this as well as I can, and this is the way that it's going to be. It's sort of taking the horse by the reins and saying, no, I'm gonna control this. Now, I wanted to give you some examples of trial and error, and lots of error. I have tried before going on stage. I thought maybe if I was just very social backstage with people, whoever was back there, talking and ha ha ha, laughing, and then going immediately on stage, I realized that that wasn't something that was going to work for me, because I actually wasn't in the piece. I had to sort of gather that while I was on stage. So it's really helpful then to, as you're doing your breathing, then to just, again, see the music in your head. To just try and be in that moment, so that when you walk on stage and you're taking your bow, you've done your tuning, you're already there. You don't have to all of a sudden panic. Does that make sense to you? If you visualize that the notes disappear after you play them, it helped someone let go of mistakes during performance because they felt less permanent. Ah, that's cute. That's cute. I like that. Well, the notes do disappear. And yeah, okay. In mental practice, are you feeling how your body, oh no, we have already done that one. Sorry. Now, someone said that that's eidetic, eidetic memory. When I was talking about the visualizing, that's eidetic. Is that the correct pronunciation? Has anybody heard of that before? When you're visualizing the music?
Eidetic is what it's called.
Eidetic, thank you.
And it's that you imagine you can see images. So
Aha,
essentially the music is the image with the page number and all that kind of stuff.
okay. Eidetic, I didn't even know that. Now, I really would like to have some interaction. Like I said, I don't have like pages and the format. I do apologize. I don't think I did my proper mental homework for this, but we all have the ability and capacity to improve technically, right? So that's what we really focus on, because that's the primary thing that shows how prepared we are. We can get better and better with the physical work, but we don't take the time and realize the importance of the mental preparation. The mental preparation is actually as great as the physical preparation. When I've come up to one of my trial and errors, when I've come up to a place in the performance where I'm a little bit nervous about this section, and I'm getting into a little bit of a knot in my head, what I discovered was that I made that prediction come true. Oh no, I'm not going to make it. That kind of thought. So that's where I started realizing that if I can make that come true, making a mistake, what about doing the opposite? So, like I said, this is very important. It's a learned skill. We have to turn off the negative voice and just insert the positive one.
Hey Sue, I have a question for you, Susan. If you don't
Yes.
mind me asking, what positive self-talk? I feel like for me, then I mean, I'm sure for everybody here, right? The negative self-talk is so strong. What type of positive talk do you use to try and overcome the negative? Is there anything that you specifically say?
Yeah, sometimes I yell at myself. I'm I'm going, I will literally say, "Susan, stop." It's a just something that comes out. And we can do that to ourselves. We're sort of reprimanding ourselves, like, "Stop that. Turn it around." So I can stop myself in my tracks, and that's what I think that has worked for me, and I think that that could work for others. It's like, I can do this. Stop making it so hard. Just relax and do it because you can do it. So it's like the positive reinforcement always.
Can I just share something really quick about
Please do.
my my 9-year-old son came home from his piano lesson yesterday and he goes, "Mom, all my teacher says to me is what I do wrong in the lesson and not what I'm doing right." And so this just reminds me, like, as teachers, we need to be, yes, like we need to be giving them the positive self-talk so then they hear that when the negative one is, or otherwise, he's probably just hearing all the negative every time he goes to practice.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, and the same as as a parent and mother, I have to remind myself that I have to, give positive affirmation, then not always just saying, "Hey, you didn't do this, you didn't do this." Right. So I think if we don't have somebody in our corner, it, giving the example of positive self-talk, it'll be really hard for us to get out of that ourselves.
I see a couple of hands, and I'm looking forward to coming to them in just one moment. I we really, as a parent, this is different because you've got someone who is uh, younger and still doesn't have his own voice or his own way of so your involvement in that is very, very important. Later on, I discovered this when I was in at Juilliard, that nobody was there to give me, like, um, come on, Susan, have you done your practice yet? This kind of thing. I realized that I was like completely on my own, and I could only rely on myself. Um, so we do have to learn to turn that voice around with the encouragement of others too. And this is what I really believe in teaching as well, is that we give a critique, constructive criticism. Like, yeah, that was good. What I say is that was not bad, but it definitely can be better. And let's now make it better. And just when I see the smile on their faces, instead of just being shot down every time. I remember lessons for myself. It's like, no, no, no. It's just all just negative, negative. And I think everything, it's not 21st century feel good kind of teaching. It's actually healthy mental stimulation to give the critique, or firstly, what's what's good is to give the positive first. What I really liked about that, blah, blah, blah. And then what we really need to work on is this, blah, blah, blah. So let's get to work on this. So by giving the positive reinforcement and then the critique, that I think gives it a much more well-rounded approach, and our ability then to give ourselves credit where it's due. It's like, yeah, that was pretty good. I can accept that.
Yeah, it's a hard balance as a teacher, I feel like.
It is. It is.
Yeah.
And what I'm loving more myself personally is just finding that is becoming more natural for me to be able to say that this, hey, that was really good. But this, let's do some work on that. But this is great. Let's try and match this to this. Okay, I have two hands up. Lee and Kathy. Lee, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. I am so digging this. I love it. And Corinne, thank you so much for sharing what your son said, because that's exactly what I was talking about this morning. And Anna, in her dystonia presentation, she said one of the important things is for people to understand that it's not their fault. And we can do this with our students and with ourselves, and really, it's not my fault that I'm always thinking about this negative crap. I was trained to think this way by my teacher from the very first lesson. That is how, I mean, it just builds on our automatic evolutionary negative fearful approach to life, which is a survival reflex. So I love that we're talking about this. I think that so the two things I want to share, one is that to counteract that, we have to actually teach celebration. Like, we know how it feels when we feel bad and we're like so crushed down, but how often are we like feeling joyful and wonderful and fantastic? And how often do we do that with students? I remember my Alexander teacher, Barbara Conable, when I did something that was wonderful, she's like jumping up and down like a 5-year-old, you know. It was so beautiful to see. And the other thing I wanted to say is that I think I love what you're saying, Susan, about the positive reaction, but I think there's an intermediate step before, as a teacher, we offer our own interpretation of what should be fixed. And that is to ask the student, what did you think? What would you do differently? Is there anything that you want to do differently? They might actually be on a whole other track. They might be thinking about the dynamics, and you're talking about articulation, and then their brain gets split and they're like, well, wait a minute, what am I supposed to be thinking about here? But just taking that moment to pause and hold back what we think they should do to fix and see what they think, because I guarantee you, if they're your student, they already know what you're going to say.
Precisely. And thank you for bringing that up, because that's something that I highly encourage. And I love to do that and say with the students, many times I ask them before I need to say, oh, I don't want to say anything. Tell me what you think.
Yep.
Because it's very important. It's got to be interactive. And many times I have asked the question, what do you think is your strength? What do you think is your, and some people have been stumped by that question because they have a list a yard long of the things they do poorly. But one time I had a student that could not come up with one thing, and I said, if you come see me in 15 minutes and if you haven't thought of one thing that you do well, you should not be in music. And they came back with 2 things that they did well. So I said, very good.
I have a follow-up question to that. When they don't answer, they go, well, I don't know. I haven't got anything. It's like, well, if you did know, what would you say?
That's cute. Just pretend.
All right, why not?
That's good. I like
It
that.
takes them out of their self in the same way that you were talking about a little bit earlier. Yeah, thank you.
Just wanted to
Thank
say
you.
we're at a 3-minute mark.
Thank you, Corinne. Kathy?
Well, I'm going to jump in and say you can do that with your student from the very first lesson. The 7 and 8-year-olds know at least as well as your students, Susan, at the university level. They know their strengths and their weaknesses. And sometimes what you have to do, like you were talking about the student that didn't know, you have to get past all of the learning that they have had, that they try to answer the way they think they're supposed to answer. And even in Finland, where we are supposed to have such wonderful education, I fight with this with my students, that I say, okay, if you could answer any way that you feel, I'm not looking for one answer, I'm looking for how you feel. And then we can start somewhere. I wanted to say first that when Corinne brought up her son, one of the greatest lessons I had was watching my son in his with his piano teacher. And I knew this piano teacher's reputation. And at first I was confused because when I was at the lessons, this piano teacher was just basically sitting there and listening and, you know, asking, you know, okay, and what would you do differently? And I was like, what's going on? Until I went to the concert and saw that he was dealing with, you know, young men, young teenage preteen boys who were all coming in their, you know, sitting like this in the concert. And each one of them, as they got up to sit at the piano, transformed and just played angelically. And what I realized is this man had this amazing patience, and he was just present for those students, and just had this unbelievable ability to just wait until they were ready to see what they needed and what, you know, and then it became an interaction. It was absolutely amazing to watch.
You know, yes, we can tend to jump on the students, and it's just waiting, just sitting back and listening and waiting is invaluable as a teacher. But with, I guess, coming back to this just to put it in a bubble, we can do this ourselves. We don't necessarily need a teacher. We need guidance, but I mean, we don't necessarily need weekly lessons to in order to do this. It's a conscious decision to say, I don't want to do this. Well, already that's a negative, isn't it? I don't want it. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do this. And so we can change this voice in our heads and make it into a positive mental preparation, I guess. Just making that decision. We can do it. We can do it. I can do it. I can do it. So now let's figure out how to do it. But I can do it. Right? We can all do it. Okay, in mental practice. Oh, okay. Oh, at a lesson, someone said, I can't do this. And then I said to them, you can't do this today. And made me repeat this. Okay, that's interesting. I agree, younger students are self-aware. Okay, so I want to thank you for your participation in this, and I do apologize for, I'm more of a intuitive on the spot kind of thing, and then when it's but I appreciate what you've shared. Thank you very much, everybody.
This has been wonderful. Thank you, Susan. I did leave the link in the chat to Susan's references for mental health practice. A lot of them, I'm happy to say, I read in college, so my teachers did a good job, I think. With you have a list there of some wonderful books. So
Not my list, Leon Bizey.
oh, that's right, Leon
Yes.
Bizey's list. Okay, thank you. It's fantastic. So thank you so much, and we'll
Thank you to Haynes again for putting this incredible summit together. I'm looking forward to attending more classes myself.
thank you so much, Susan. All right, we'll take a break and we'll see you back in a little bit. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, recording in progress. Wonderful. So, okay, after 20, 30 minutes practice, you practice something hard, you may feel very struggling. Your muscle feeling a little bit tension. You're probably feeling your fingers pain or something pain in your back, your neck. So at this time, it's perfect for you to do some stretch exercise. The first exercise I have right here is called the deep anterior neck flexor stretch. So in this exercise, what you need to do, you can stand or sit, totally fine. What you need to do is like pull your head up to seeing towards to the ceiling, and then we slowly turn it to your left side or right side until you feel the stretch on the front of your neck. Make sure it's like up first and then turn left or turn right. And you can feel the stretch. We switch to the other side. Good. Now we have the above the head chest stretch. Why we need to do some chest stretch? Because while we're holding your flute, with this position, your chest muscles actually is going to contract. So at this time, it's perfect time for doing some stretch for your chest. What you need to do is like interlock your finger, put it back and up behind your head. And we press your elbow and your hand backward so that you can feel your pressing your shoulder blades as well, so that you can feel your stretching right here. If you cannot feel it, maybe put it back a little bit more or upper a little bit until you find the sweet spot. Good. And then we will have the wrist and hand stretch. You can put your arm in front of your body and palm facing upward, and your another hand gently press your finger down to the floor so that you will feel the stretch right here in front of your arm. And then we switch, turn your palm facing downward, and also use another hand gently press fingers. You will feel the stretch here. Then we can switch to your another arm, doing the same thing again. Okay. Then we have the breathing coordination exercise. What is this? Basically, this exercise, you will need to inhale as much as you can, and then you whispering and saying 1 to 10 until you cannot push out more air, until your lip is just whispering. Just push all your air out. And then inhale again and do the same thing again. So you just inhale. You cannot say anything. Inhale again. Do it one more time. Do it a couple more times. It's a good exercise to help you expand your respiration and expand your breathing length. So we good to go and move to the next section. It's the practice section 3, and you probably solved some of your problems through your practice, and you are improving, you're getting stronger. Congratulations. But meanwhile, you may notice your flute start dropping down like that, and your body tilting to the right, probably. And you may have some forward head motion because you are so focused on working on your music. It's just hard. You just so focused on your music and you forget to make sure to check your posture. So in this section, what we're gonna do in this break, we will have some exercise to realign your posture. The first one is super easy, the wall stand stretch. You will just need to stand against the wall again. Yes. Only with your shoulder, your back, your hip on the against the wall, and gently push your head back, attached to the wall, and we'll just stay there for 30 seconds. Or you can, if you want, you can stay there for a minute. But you will need to make sure your shoulder, your back, your hip, your head, it's attaching to the wall. After the 30 seconds, 1 minute, back to the neutral position, and you will find now your body in line again. And then we will move to another exercise. It's a front rise exercise. You can do it against the wall, or you can just standing in front of something. Because again, we stay in this position for too long. We need to reactivating our joints. So what you need to do is just have your both hands in front of your body. Gently, slowly raise up to shoulder level. If you can, raise up over your head. Don't forget to breathe, and then slowly coming back down. Sometimes I will do this exercise with my flute or my flute case. I just holding with the flute case with both in both ends with my hands. Start raising it from the bottom to shoulder height up to the ceiling. Bring back down. Wonderful. So this is good exercise for you to reactivate your shoulder. And then we have a side bend exercise. This exercise for me, it's perfect to do it for my right side. I think it's like my right side is always the problem. I feel a lot of pain on my right side, and sometimes this exercise just helps me a lot. So what you need to do, just standing straight, and you will need to engage your core, make sure your core is like stable, stabilize your torso, and raise your hands up. And we will just gently turn your body to the left side or your right side so that you can feel the stretch on your right or on your left. And we're coming back to your neutral position and switch to the other side. And back again. Yes, I feel my right side. A lot of tension. Good. All right, after like 20 more minutes, 30 minutes, you finish your practice. Congratulations. You just finished everything. But your muscle, your body still in hands, still you feel sore. So don't forget, you will need to do some stretch to cool down your body and make sure they are ready to work. They're ready to relax. They're ready to do something else. So what I have here is 5 exercises. The first one is the deltoid and trap stretch. This one is my favorite because after practice, I always feeling a lot of pain in my right shoulder, my right neck, and my arms right here. So you need to do is to have your hands, your arms cross your body behind your body and cross it, and the other hands grabbing the wrist and gently pull it so that you can feel the stretch on your shoulder, your arm right here. At the same time, if you're pulling your arms to the left, your head slightly bending to the left side so that you can feel you're also stretching your left. Your trap on the right side. And then we gently coming back, switch to the other side. Good. Next one, we will need to stretch our back. You can do it in front of the wall or find a chair or a table. All you need to do is just like stand a little bit further away from a wall or a chair. And then your hands just need to holding it and pulling your torso down and backward so that you can feel the stretch on your back. You just hold it there for 20 or 30 seconds. And we just slowly come back. Whew. Okay, next one is also my favorite. Yep, this is called bent arms, chest, and wall stretch. So what you need to do, the good place you can find if it's a door frame or the end of a wall, but if you cannot, a wall is totally fine too. So you will need to have one arm up to your shoulder height and place it the end of the wall or a door frame, and then use your opposite leg. We step forward and move forward a little bit so that you can feel the stretch on your chest. You can going up a little bit or going low a little bit so that you can find different angle to stretch. We can also switch to another side. Good.
Ziqing, just letting you know you have 5 minutes.
Okay, thank you. We're almost done. So the next one, we have the standing knee to chest stretch. Okay, so if you cannot do it like holding your both hands to your knee, you can have one hand holding a chair or something to help you to balance, and then put one hand holding the knee and pull your knee up towards to the chest so that you can stretch a little bit your hip muscle and your hamstring muscle. And then we will switch to the other side. After that, we will have a coherent breathing, which is just inhale for 5 seconds, exhale for 5 seconds, no holding between. You just have fully relax and calm down your body and your mind. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good job. We've done the whole exercise. Also, I have some like flexibility and strength exercise here, but I don't think we have enough time to go through that. I would just like upload the slides so that you can see all the selected exercise right here. And also, if you are interested to read more about this exercise, you feel free to search my doctor document, Injury Prevention Exercise Guidelines for Flutists. I have more exercise on my document, and you are feel free to mix those exercise around like what I introduced in the practice routine. You can mix around with some other exercise. You feel free to do that. And also, if you have more, you want to know more about me or know more about the injury prevention training, you please going to our studio website. We just published today. So yeah, this is my musician wellness studio website. You feel free to go if you are interested to look at some more information, and you feel free to email me through my email below. I would love to hear more feedback, suggestion, or any questions about your injury prevention stuff. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Ziqing, thank you so much. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. Incredible.
Yeah, really, really helpful. My goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, thanks.
So let's open this up for just maybe like 5 minutes of questions. I just love how we could really apply and get up and move and do this.
Yeah.
We will make sure your slides are a resource at the end of the weekend. All right. Do we have any questions? Go right ahead. I'm going to see who we need to mute. I think we need to mute someone. Hold on. Go ahead, Lee.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ziqing.
Bye.
Bye.
Really good. Three things that I especially love. One is that most of these things are easy.
Yes.
Me, with my knee surgery that I just had, I could do most of them. Some of them I had to do sitting down. The second thing that I really love is that you're including a warm-up. And it just blows my mind how many people are still ignoring full body warm-ups. You did whole body warm-ups. And usually when I ask teachers, what do you do with warm-ups for your students? Nobody does anything. They just come right in, put that flute together and play. So I love this. And I think it would be a fantastic thing if we could all do this with our students at the beginning of every lesson. What a benefit it would be for both the teacher and the student. It'd be fantastic. And the cool down, of course. And the third thing that I loved was the breathing coordination. That is the best breathing. I learned that in Alexander technique. I think it would be fabulous for if Corinne, if you haven't done that with the seniors yet, this is a really fantastic way of increasing breath expansion and movement. All of that is great. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thank
Nicely
you.
done. And I love how you pulled in information and exercises from all different sources. Very nice.
Thank you.
Ziqing, I've also sent Jennifer Parker Harley a little note saying how great you did. So
Oh,
Ziqing and I
thank
both
you.
we both did our doctorates at South Carolina, so we have we study with the same teacher. So I can tell you're in the School of Music right now. Is that right?
Yes, I am. That's in the conference room right now.
Yeah, very familiar. Well, thank you so much. It was really wonderful. Kathleen has a question. I have pain specifically in my thumbs, which are extremely double jointed. Are there any exercises for that?
So yeah, basically, I will really suggest if you can send me pictures or something, I can see it, what happened, so that I can diagnose what's going on, and then I will suggest some exercise for you. But if for your thumb, I don't know, it's like a left or your right, but usually I will feel my right thumb, and right here, it's a little bit pain. Usually what I do, of course, is just a little bit massage in this position right here. I mean, in this place right here. If you have the lacrosse ball or even like the tennis ball or something, just gently rolling it in this area. I think it's released. It helps you to release the tension here. And also, I would suggest to check your I think it's your hand position first, to find a good spot to support your flute, that it's not hurting your thumb. Maybe adding extra like the thumb support or something that you can adjust so that you can feel a little bit more comfortable holding your flute. I think that's the most important. Am I answering your question?
Yeah, I think everyone's feedback has been very helpful. Saying very helpful. Thank you. Great ideas. Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. I'll go ahead and end the recording. And yeah, we'll take a little break here and we'll see you guys back at 3 o'clock for Amy Porter. It's time. Thank you, Blair. It's time to introduce Amy Porter. She's an amazing soloist, professor at University of Michigan, and we're just so happy for her to be here to talk about breath mastery, peak performance possibilities using her breathing buddy. So Amy, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Corinne. Thank you, everyone. Hello, friends. Welcome to the Haynes Summit. I'm just so honored to be presenting today. I'm professor of flute at the University of Michigan here in Ann Arbor, and I'm founder and CEO of something called the Anatomy of Sound, and now VoiceBox 3D simulators. So this is my lecture that I call Breath Mastery for Peak Performance Possibilities, and I'm bringing along a buddy that I want to show you, so you can have a plan to follow through with the breath that you need to take in every situation. From gripping the steering wheel in traffic and making that tough decision in life, playing that long phrase that's super scary. I hope this presentation will give you some tools for conscious breathing. So whatever kind of breaths they need to be, you need to be conscious about them. I've been through a lot in my life and in competitions in my life, and every time I've turned to the breath. I understand that the breath can be the guide to all your decisions and your actions. If only we would take them consciously. So sometimes I rely on the breath as the base for my decisions. So please understand that nothing I say today or show you is intended to diagnose, treat, or cure or mitigate disease. Our objective in Anatomy of Sound and VoiceBox 3D is to inspire people to prioritize their breath in health and performance. Our second objective is to provide tips and practical advice for improving breathing and breath control. And our number one objective is to educate and inform you about the origins of peak performance, breathing, and personal sound. When I went to the Mozarteum Academy in Salzburg, it was life-changing to take the classes that they offered on mobility, flexibility, and availability. At Juilliard, I was introduced to the Alexander technique by Ron Dennis. It changed my life. It has levels of awareness from table method of lying on the table and understanding the micro pulls of the teacher, and then graduating on to the lessons of availability in the hips and the torso. It was amazing to witness my body in motion, and I had the capacity within to do anything that I needed to do within. Playing Prokofiev's sonata while rotating at the hips was a favorite lesson that I had in the lobby of Juilliard. So Alexander technique informed my body. After that, I practiced yoga on a yoga mat at 23. After that, I started running at 33. I practiced lifting at 43, and 15 years now. After that, I had a first personal trainer for 15 years. I now work out in my home, and I turn to my partner, Laura Dwyer, to take me places I've never been on that yoga mat. And I turned to the Nike training app, and master trainer Joe Holder is in there, and he advances my personal training because I'm educated. I feel great when the endorphins kick in. My point here is that I started when I was young, but I added on as I aged. So I had a teacher for a long time. Here's my advice. You don't have to do it all while you're young. And then when you're older, you think, oh, it's too late. So that's hogwash. I think that's one of the reasons why my body has been so good to me, because I care for it without knowing why. I just invest in my breath, and my body followed. In 2003, I began an annual workshop for 20 years called Anatomy of Sound, working with different guests every year, like Paula Robeson, seen here, imitating Marcel Moïse, along with two other teammates, movement specialist Jerry Schweibert and yoga instructor Laura Dwyer, shown here having our yoga class. With the untimely passing of the life of Jerry Schweibert, Laura Dwyer and I now have put Anatomy of Sound as a curriculum online. And Dr. David Brown, seen here, he's a flutist and otolaryngologist. He's taking us on a tour of the body using our anatomage table here at Michigan. He's our new partner in wellness for musicians. So we want to help performing artists and inform them with the origins of peak performance within, utilizing their personal peak breathing patterns and learning the best breath work and speed controls, contours that open up your personal sound. My primary goal this year is to broaden access to anatomical knowledge, from stick figures and skeletons and ugly anatomical videos to presenting how the body and breath intertwine in 3D, catering specifically to you and arts educators, because we work one-on-one. We don't need a simple skeleton because we don't know quite how to teach with it to show breathing. So how much air needs to be taken in? What does it feel like? Is there a way that I can know that I'm going to make it through a phrase by looking at a skeleton? Well, when we take music lessons, we're not part of a team. We're one-on-one. That daily master class setting is rare. And as you see here, I'm always working one-on-one with students alone in the room, taking the utmost care with students to be on their level and try to understand the dynamics of that relationship. And it's not easy. In fact, I'm super honest, and I admit to the student, you're unfamiliar with me, and in order to diffuse your fear and doubt, I'm going to introduce you to some breathing techniques. And then I use them in their flute playing, and it takes them to a different state of mind altogether, one that's clear and that can take in information and not be overwhelmed. Breath is critical to performers, and the stakes are high, as you know, to win that part or that post. That's why physical touch has always been a part of our breath training, not just in music lessons, but also dance, drama, sports medicine, the list goes on. But sometimes this method can go horribly wrong, and there has to be a better way, or at least a compromise, for those students who don't want to be touched by their teacher. So up until now, we music teachers have poked ourselves or our students in the sternum, and we've said, blow. or yoga teachers dramatically say, breathe into your belly. And words like support the breath, it's very ambiguous. And words that don't match true anatomy of the breath are flowery teaching techniques that can do more harm than good. So teaching the breath when you have no medical background can be misleading and misguided. Well, at Anatomy of Sound, our purpose is to unleash the fullest potential of every breath without intrusive touch, vague vocabulary, and perhaps more untruths, leading to misperceptions and misunderstandings. Up until now, the breath regulates itself all the time, just while we're sitting here. Sometimes we're working out, we yawn. We play the flute, we yawn. Or right before you fall asleep, you take this big high yawn, and then you hold your breath and you stretch a little bit. Why is this happening? Well, our diaphragm has something to do with it. The regulation of the breath in the body involves a sophisticated interplay between various physiological mechanisms, and here's a basic overview, dialing it down. The primary regulators of breathing are located in the brainstem, specifically the medulla oblongata and the pons. These respiratory centers constantly monitor levels of carbon dioxide, CO2, and pH in the blood. Specialized sensors called chemoreceptors are in the arteries and brain, and they detect changes in the CO2 levels, oxygen levels, and pH. So when CO2 levels rise or pH drops, indicating increased acidity, right? We had a cup of coffee. It triggers the body to breathe more deeply and rapidly to expel excess CO2 and restore balance. The diaphragm and intercostal muscles contract and relax to facilitate breathing. When the brain's respiratory centers signal for increased breathing, these muscles expand the chest cavity, drawing air into the lungs during your inhalation. Conversely, relaxation of these muscles leads to exhalation. The autonomic nervous system, specifically the sympathetic and parasympathetic branches, also influences of breath regulation. The sympathetic response is fight or flight. That can temporarily increase your breathing rate, while your parasympathetic response is rest and digest. That promotes slower, more relaxed breathing. The body maintains a really delicate balance through a feedback loop. As CO2 levels drop during rapid or deep breathing, the chemoreceptors signal the brain to reduce breathing rate and depth to prevent the excess loss of CO2. And the body adapts breathing to different conditions such as flute playing, exercising, sleep, or stressful situations. So your body meets its own oxygen demands and maintains homeostasis. So you're not going to die playing that long phrase. By understanding these mechanisms, you can optimize your breath by practicing these techniques that influence your system. So deep breathing exercises, mindfulness, controlled breathing patterns, all contributing to your overall health and wellness. Skeletal models, they range between $200 and $1,100 if you want a set of ribs and lungs that are anatomically correct, and they don't have a moving part. So today we're introducing a paradigm shift in breath education from stick figures to skeletons, utilizing innovative technology and interdisciplinary collaboration. Just by showing you this at the virtual summit, you'll be learning through the lenses of doctors, 3D designers, flutists, teachers, who all want to make sure you have a proper education in the easiest way possible. Today, we'll explore the transformative power of the breath control in achieving your peak performance, right in the moment when it counts, like in tennis, when that ball's in the air, or when that phrase is about to happen, or when your name is about to be called. I will give you a breathing exercises and suggestions. And if you're holding this simulator, you can use it to remind your students to think in the best way possible about the breath. I would encourage you to call it My Breathing Buddy because you're holding it. Breathing is innate as well as intentional and unintentional. But optimizing breath control is an art form, especially when we're performing. We need to really be ready to perform. And sometimes we have to put more emphasis on the body before we get to work on the flute. We need to really be ready to breathe. So how can we just perform? You know, we can't just be arrogant and jump in straight into the music. We have to be ready to breathe. You have to be thinking about your alignment technique each and every single inhalation and exhalation. The musical and emotional perfect breath, it's never given to you. You have to fight for it. Every time you're nervous, every time you're zoning out, you have to be accountable for controlling that breath. By teaching individuals how to harness the power of their breath effectively, my breathing buddy serves as a valuable tool in managing stress and promoting relaxation and supporting overall well-being. And it just aids in the regulation of the vagus nerve activity. We'll get into that. Consulting with experts in relevant fields such as designer David Zopf and Dr. Brown, as you met earlier, and now conductor John Pasquale of the Michigan Marching Band. It highlights the connection between the arts and understanding anatomy. We're about to embark on a study with the Michigan Marching Band. And Dr. Pasquale only saw this once, and he went to Africa, and he said he took this visual with him, not only when he taught music, but it was a powerful visual aid in his digestive issues. We can personalize breath mastery. Here I use it to show a student what they need to envision when they're playing a long phrase. And I'm showing a young cellist here not to cave in on the rib cage as he is breathing, playing the cello. This is what I call touchless teaching. I ensure safety, inclusivity, and enhanced performance through knowledge of the capacity for the expression and the movement. Without needing wireless connectivity in the classroom, we have a tangible, anatomically specific teaching tool that was made in a medical device lab. I've heard a lot of stories about what happens when the diaphragm's being used, so to speak. So I've heard that it produces vibrato. I've heard that it produces tone. So here we are to teach some anatomy of sound. As humans, we are really charged with emotions, especially in the spotlight. So why do we need controlled breathing? Why do we even need to think about it? Well, it's optimal breathing mechanics. You just start sitting up like I just did. Oh, okay, I'll take a breath, right? I sat on top of the torso. I actually wanted to be this and not cave in. It fosters relaxation. It alleviates stress. It contributes to sleep quality. It envisions posture, like I just said, and you could use it as a talisman, a good luck charm. Take it along with you to your auditions. That way we can remember our lines and concentrate on the activity at hand and maybe even control our emotions. I'm sure you all have your story of how your breath let you down right at that moment when you said, I needed that, and it worked for you. Not, it didn't work for you. Sorry, it worked against you. For instance, when I was young and I had too much air, I had to let some out my nose. I hated that. My heart rate goes up super high before a performance. It went up super high about 15 minutes ago. And I'm doing my makeup or dress rehearsal, and then it always spikes when I'm walking out on stage and actually doing the thing. So if I really want my breath to be the way I need it to be, I need to do a few things. I need to master it. I need to control it. I need to show up with these techniques in my body. So here's my accountability plan in I call it my defensive toolkit. I don't climb the stairs to get to the stage. If I do, it's well in advance. I just ask for the elevator. I avoid the innocuous banter and giggles and conversation with people backstage. I don't let people that are not in my zone of performance enter into my headspace. In other words, don't talk to me backstage trivially about a friend of a friend before I'm about to play, or take that moment to giggle with the production crew about something innocuous, because that'll make my heart rate go high. Avoid panic. You can hum what you're about to play with a controlled breath. Calm everything down in the body by sitting in a chair. You need to do this when you go to the doctor's office too, right? Right before they take your blood pressure. Get there early, sit with feet on the floor. Otherwise they'll say, Porter, what's happening to you? So control your breathing. Feet on the floor squarely. This works for ensemble sections too. Conductors ask me all the time, what do I do? And I said, well, are they all sitting the same way? So never cross your legs to play, since it destroys the femur's involvement, and the weird pivot of the hip doesn't help. And when you're standing, oh, it's so great. You drop the belly and then you inhale deeply into the back, and It's called Monkey and Alexander. It's an incredible feeling to sink into that pelvic floor and release the abdominal muscles. When you breathe in, if you have time for that phrase, and then that phrase will be amazing for you. Here are some things to work on backstage. Double the exhale, and you say F. So you breathe in, and then you say F. Those of you who've been with me backstage, I will just be sitting there going, and SH, shh, but don't do that too much because the stage crew might think you're shushing them. We know that you have a turbocharge of adrenaline, and that's like, oh my God. As my husband asked me once, honey, before Carnegie Hall about, I was gonna walk on stage, honey, are you nervous? I said, I'm not nervous, because that was a breath. I said, I'm frightened. That was my brain. So everyone understands that dialing into the moment of the breath is going to get me that performance, and it got me that performance. And your mental state is not your body's state, right? Everyone out there has a heart rate too, and at that moment it's lower than yours. So you understand what you're about to experience. What is it? Your breath. Don't underestimate your internal dialogue is going to dictate about your performance. Don't let it ruin it. Our breath is the entry point to our inner strengths. All right, here we go. The fear factor. Fight or flight response is our body's instinctive reaction to perceived threats or stressors, triggering a surge of hormones that prepares us for action. However, prolonged activation of this response can lead to chronic stress and various health issues if you're always in a fight or flight. The vagus nerve is a key player in this parasympathetic nervous system, and it acts as a counterbalance, believe it or not. It promotes relaxation and calming the body's stress response. When we experience stress, our breathing tends to become shallow and rapid, and it reinforces that fight or flight response. And remember the simulator, activate the vagus nerve calming effect. It's always good to know when you're about to walk into a performance from where your fear is coming and address it. Is it being triggered by something from the past? Is it triggered by the conductor or your old professor, or just by the tuning note of the orchestra? Or the piece before the overture and you're about to play the concerto? By conducting some self-evaluation, by speaking with a professional, a person can identify the cause of their fears. Our beliefs are our hidden scripts. The most powerful words we say to ourselves. So I am asking you to take center stage without fear. Breathe in those dreams and goals. They take believing in yourself, and you can follow old habits, or you can take this seriously and understand you need to be doing these breathing exercises, because it's not what it feels like, right? It's what it sounds like. So you got to get liberated in your blowing, release your fears. You see, it's all related. Here's what I do to get my best result. First, I notice if my breathing is shallow or deep. Am I breathing shallow or fast? Don Green calls it normal fear and doubt. Don Green teaches the sports psychology, and he's at Juilliard, and he's amazing. And I normalized my fear and doubt by calling butterflies flutterbys. Always get them when I'm doing the backstage getting ready. Secondly, I want to find the breaths for each situation in the phrase that comes next, not that phrase right now. A lot of us go, boom, but wait, I have something important. I have to identify what it is that I have to do in that specific phrase. Better yet, I have to decide how I'm going to breathe while I'm resting. How many of us, we don't even know if we're breathing when we're taking a rest, right? 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, I'm not breathing. So you've got to deal with what kind of breath you're going to take. Third, once you identify the real meaning of that fear and you move through it and you take that breath you want to take, I said this earlier, then you can expand into why you're really here. And you get to do the work you've been given to do by the music or text. It's not about emotions of this human. It's about the emotion of the composer working through the human. And that's the lesson here. So give up killing all your efforts. Stop standing in your own way. Come through with incredible rocket fuel the other way. Blow. flow. Let your being shine in this music and this warm air you're creating with your intention. No more worrying about all ears and eyes are on me. It's in the breath and letting go into your experience and visualizing where that breath goes is key. Okay. So it's not going, it's going actually down. All right. When you can relax that diaphragm down, as you've seen here, then you have a thought that's fearful, you go, and then you say, yes, up. Okay. Yes, I can do this when I breathe. Think about that breath again and bring your emotions back into the driver's seat. You know, you're driving the car. So you need to be running this show. There's no one way to breathe except in the direction of in and out. But no matter what method you use to regulate your breath, breathing is supposed to relax you or energize you or help you get through those tough passages or your song or your speech or your thread of air, but you have to be aware of your habits. So come back to the breath. Sometimes in super long passages, you see me playing on YouTube and it hopefully looks effortless, but I can tell you it's super scary. So you'll never regret showing up for yourself in these long, slow phrases because you're exposing this exhale and its breadth and its length and the slow tempo of the phrase, right? You're modifying. It doesn't matter even if you modify with a catch breath, you're like the rising tension and the intention of the phrase still works from that original breath. You are accountable for your breath and you thought about it. Okay, now you need to play a little faster, right? So if you're introducing speed, that control is still there and it still counts as part of your overall peak performance lesson plan. So if you're going to play something fast, don't breathe fast. And also, I'll cover this later, but you don't want to be moving the tube. Here's my second one. Set an intention for the breath. If you're seeing immediate results in your artistry from this breathing and setting your intention, let that be your criteria for the way you should breathe. No one can say, oh, that was good. Don't look to someone else for someone else to tell you that was a good phrase. Because if you made it, yes, I did it. All right. Secondly, third, alignment and centering and support. You know, the breath affects your physical, mental, and musical states. And focus and mental clarity, that all comes into play too. So your optimal breathing patterns help regulate your oxygen flow to the brain, and it promotes mental clarity and focus. And that's what we need in auditions. And so by reducing stress and increasing oxygenation, performing artists can experience improved concentration and cognitive performances. And of course, there's the musical and physical expression that we have, the component of the breath. So you're always going to be moving without tension. Jerry used to say there's static on the television and there's motion on the television. Which one would you want? So always have motion without tension. And for musicians, breath control is paramount. Okay. I really feel that my breathing buddy aids in understanding and mastering that support. And I'll just pause for a moment with this quote because I love it. Breath is the finest gift of nature. You should be grateful for this wonderful gift. And Amit Ray is a spiritual teacher and author, often exploring mindfulness and meditation and the profound connection between breath, spirituality, and well-being in his writings. This is from Om Chanting and Meditation. So our company, Anatomy of Sounds, it's not a cold list of exercises and lectures that you have to follow methodically to come to your best tone. That would be a method book. We enjoy the concept of teaching the breath as part of our changing and evolving curriculum and our evolving life, and it helps in finding your personal sound. We use yoga, restorative yoga, and guided meditations to have, we care for your well-being. So use this website, AOS-Wellness, as your curriculum from someone you trust. All right. We're going to give you a couple of exercises here. Intentional breathing can be difficult if you don't know what it is. So we'll give you the first breathing mastery technique to unleash your fullest potential. Arnold Jacobs was an American tubist who spent most of his career in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. He held that position from 1944 until his retirement in 1988. Jacobs was considered one of the foremost brass pedagogues of his time, as well as an expert on breathing as it related to brass wind, woodwind, and vocal performance. Due to childhood illness and adult onset asthma, his lung capacity was significantly impaired. He's best remembered for his playing philosophy, which he referred to as song and wind. There are 5 common breathing exercises available for download on our website that will advance your inhalation and exhalation. You'll find this on our website, and you'll have this slide with you as well when you leave here. So if you can't see it quite now, you can refer to it later. We are going to do an exercise, but just not these. Box breathing. I know a Navy SEAL pilot named Richard who flies helicopters. And Richard uses box breathing because in high stress situations, it's crucial for him to remain calm and think clearly. Navy SEALs use box breathing as a quick way to get their nervous system under control. This technique helps them stay focused and precise during critical operations. Again, this is on our website, aos-wellness.com. Here's what we're going to do. Rectangle breathing. Laura Dwyer gives us this in her Anatomy of Sound meditation, day 1. Okay. Laura says, be gentle, because tension is often the body's way of asking for help when it doesn't know any other way. Guide it into softness. And Laura teaches the rectangle breathing technique. So let's try that now. Begin to visualize a rectangle in your mind's eye, parallel to the floor. The long end parallel to the floor if you're sitting. And if you're lying down, it's the long end parallel to the floor if you're sitting, and parallel to your feet if you're lying down. And you can give this rectangle a single color, or you can give the short ends or the long ends their own color. And on the inhalations and exhalations, you follow along the length of the long end of the rectangle. And on the short ends is the transition between the two. I love this moment of suspension. It's always fascinated me. So let's go ahead and inhale up one side of this rectangle. And then there's that suspension across the top. And then you can make ocean breath, maybe closing the lip. And keep yourself steadily focused on tracing that triangle. And notice any tension in the body or urges in our minds to do something else. As we continue, never letting go of tracing the rectangle. Count your breaths. Laura warns us that tensions arise in the body with thoughts that try to intrude and jump over top of what we're doing. So realize you're actually thinking and take accountability and come back to the rectangle. I just love this rectangle breathing. Laura teaches this in her 31-day meditation challenge, and day 1, the first 3 minutes. And she also guides you in a counted meditation. You can take our meditation challenge at your own pace or with Laura. Relatable posture issues and tension are always interfering with our breathing. Jerry Schweibert, in his book, Physical Expression for the Performing Artist, teaches us this. The ribs are connected to the spine and ideally move with the spine. If you slump and collapse your core, your chest slumps too. Trying to correct a slump by pushing out your chest limits spinal motion. Rather than pushing the chest forward, you want the body to find its own balance. Unless you allow the ribs to move freely, your spine won't be able to expand and contract with each breath. We remembered this by singing that tune by Sting. Every breath you take, every move you make. And then we finish it with, the spine expands and contracts. And then Jerry would go. Okay, so every breath you take, every move you make, the spine expands and contracts. Once you can feel that, it changes. See, the diaphragm, when it drops, it changes the shape of the abdominal cavity, but not the volume. I mean, you are what you are. So here, Laura is working with Eddie Daniels in this shot, famous jazz clarinetist. She's working with him to breathe into his back and release his elbows. So how can we enhance lung capacity and oxygen intake by simply practicing these breaths? A lot of us don't practice the breath. So I actually do, and I teach my students. So here are some great ways before we take it onto the flute. A piggyback breath through the mouth. One of the first breaths I ever learned when I was like 15. It shows a breath on top of a breath on top of a breath, and it shows how deep the diaphragm can drop. So take in the OH backwards, like, and take in another one. You do another one. That's piggyback, right? You didn't realize the diaphragm could sink so low. Nose breathing. I found sleep has improved when I've visualized my breathing body and the dropping action of the diaphragm when I took a nose breath. So go ahead and breathe in through your nose and drop the diaphragm instead of going right with your chest. When I have a long phrase, I'll try a nose breath followed by a mouth breath. So let's try that. So you always can do more. And let's do the last one, the mouth and then nose. That's going to be a loud one right there because you're just super like open. Elbows are gone, nothing's there. You're just blowing. Now I want you to visualize or use my breathing body one more time just to see the vertebra and the position of holding the weight of the arms while keeping the rib cage comfortably expanded outward as the diaphragm descends, right? So we don't want to assume a position. We always say that, never assume a position. We just want the body to be erect for oxygen levels to remain high because the body isn't caving in on itself. And I just think that this not caving in on myself regulates my airstream. Okay, because I'm not starving for air like that. Okay, putting the flute into all this, we can focus on the breath in action on our instrument for a few seconds. I know this is small. Again, it's on AOS-wellness.com. It's pretty easy to remember. You start at 88 and remember the number 88, but don't in any way think you can only start at 88. If it's 120, it's 120. But you're going to go down by 4 counts. So you're going to play 4 scales, a major and a minor, or an octatonic and a whole tone. And so you're going to do quarter note equals 88 4 times, quarter note equals 84, and quarter note equals 80. And you're going to do those 12 scales for a week. And then the next week, you're going to come in at the top number is going to be that second number you started with. So it's going to be 84, 80, 76. 4 scales, 4 scales, 4 scales for 1 week. And over time, I think this has been the #1 exercise for the Mendelssohn Scherzo, longevity of phrase, just incredible. Try it to fall asleep. Again, it's on our website, aos-wellness.com. Moving on, here are some common issues I address as a professor in my studio with my flute players. Please don't leap to breathe. You don't need your body to leap to breathe. Use a wall or piano to steady you and monitor how you're breathing. And try not to windmill. Why do we need to swoop up and down trying to make motion when it's the music that should have motion, the air, the breath? Instruments of physics, which a flute is an instrument of physics, it will be impacted if you move it around. So much like if you move the tube, the tone's going to change. We look at the flute like, what's happening? What did you do? It's not the flute, it's you. Okay, now there's a hold sometimes, like a catch. Right before we breathe in, we go, and that never works. So do not tighten to breathe. Also, are you breathing late? To ask yourself, am I breathing like right before I come in? Or did I just take a catch breath in order to play something important? My students always hear, please don't breathe before you're about to breathe. I say that so much because as Dr. Brown will say, you are not going to die by running out of air on the flute. But our brain is saying, I'm going to pass out, I'm not going to make it. And so we destroy it. If a composer writes a piece for me and I have to play something super impressive, I am surely going to breathe very well and well in advance of when I have to do that spectacular thing that they've given me to do. Okay. Learning and using proper breathing techniques is one of the most beneficial things that can be done for both short-term and long-term physical and emotional health. We know all the great things it does. The nervous system reduces stress, right? So here's what we suggested at AOS, breath-centered warm-up routine. We've already heard that today. Practice sessions dedicated with warm-ups focusing on breath control and vocal exercises for singers. Then have a reflective breath journal. Why not? Jot down observations during your practice session. Reflective journaling can deepen your understanding of your breath's role in your music making. Dedicate part of the routine to yoga poses, gentle stretching exercises that we just saw, and connecting the breath to movement, promoting relaxation and suppleness. It can positively impact your performance. Allocate time to specifically work on breath support exercises relevant to your instrument. For wind instruments, we focus on sustaining tone with consistent air. And vocalists can practice breath control through dynamic range exercises. Introduce mindful breaks during your practice. Close your eyes, deep diaphragmatic breathing, refocus. You can do visualization exercises that center on the breath or musical expressions. I can't tell you how many times I have felt how to play a phrase and envisioned how to play a phrase. It never once came out of my flute. So once you feel that and it's in your airstream, then it comes out of your flute. So that's expression, you know, you focus on your musical scenarios, and integrating breath mastery in all this is definitely going to optimize your musical performance. So circling back to teaching the breath on any instrument, here's some feedback from the amazing oboe professor at Florida State. And I'd like to now share with you 3 very, very short videos on how to teach with my breathing buddy.
My breathing buddy has revolutionized my practice. My breathing buddy helps me visualize what's going on in my body before I perform.
I am so excited for my breathing buddy. As a college professor, it's always very difficult to get my students to understand exactly how breathing works as it relates to them playing their instrument. And having something like this available is going to close the gap and make it so much more understandable and accessible for them.
I'm with my breathing buddy today for all the conductors out there. You can stand on the podium and just simply hold up my breathing buddy. So we're just going to inflate the lungs and watch the diaphragm drop. Everybody can see how low and slow their breath can be. Make sure everyone understands not just to breathe into the air in their mouth, but to breathe into the air in their body. You can also make sure that the student realizes that volume equals volume. So if they'd like to play loudly, they take in a very deep breath and keep that diaphragm down and relax down. And that creates volume. Volume equals volume. Show everyone the vertebra and make sure they're not caving in on their ribs. I know a lot of flutists who would love nothing more than to lean on the chair next to them. This is great for brass players to make sure they have great posture. I'm excited to put this in the hands of every performing artist and performing arts educator for touchless teaching. Hi, I'm here with my breathing buddy, and we're here to talk about articulation. We're here to make sure that you are articulating from the diaphragmatic pressure. A great way to think about this is saying ha, 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 ha. And so that's going to be coming from about right here. And as we inhale, The diaphragm drops, and then it's going to stay constant while I keep renewing. So I never run out of air. Make sure you're doing your scales and exercises using ha, 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 ha. And again, that's diaphragmatic pressure behind all your articulation. In other words, don't just articulate from the air in your mouth. It will sound a little bit like this, like you're slurring your speech. So speak from the air that is living inside your body and have it come out with the support of the diaphragmatic pressure. Have fun with your scales. Okay. I just want to,
Amy, let's say about 5 minutes to leave
I've
time
got-
for some Q&A.
just need two.
Oh, you're the
This-
best. Right.
This winter, my breathing buddy will be going through a motorization process, so stay tuned for that. Mechanical engineering 450, they're going to motorize. I've always envisioned a slow, medium, and fast on this thing. We've made tremendous progress in the manufacturing, beta testing, patents, licensing, trademarking, with funding from and backing from Michigan Innovation Partnerships, Ann Arbor Spark, Michigan SBDC, that's Small Business Development Council, and the Midwest I-Corps training that I did with Laura Dwyer. Thank you to our brand partners who have agreed to order my breathing buddy when you need it. So if you don't want to order straight from us directly, you're standing there and you're buying a flute and you need my breathing buddy, you just go ahead and talk to one of these 4 amazing brand, my breathing buddy brand partners. We have a beautiful creative owner's manual. So don't blow into it. The reason why this is not a spirometer is because we don't want teachers to teach blowing in, breathing in while blowing out. It just doesn't work. So you need to be blowing in while your student's blowing in. So the breathing buddy allows for that. Don't blow into it. It's not a spirometer, and I have no interest in making a spirometer. It's safe in the case. It's a great case. It's pretty big. It's over there on the piano. And don't leave it in a hot car. It's direct sunlight, not so great on the 3D. It can't swim, so don't immerse your breathing buddy in water. Air or sponge bath, you can use your little inflator bulb to maybe clean it, or a little Windex. And lastly, it's not a chew toy. So inform your pets or your toddlers that this doesn't have a squeaker device. Not going to be very fun. So keep out of reach of pets. So breathe better, move better, live better from your team at aoswellness.com. Thank you so much for your interest in anatomy of sound. We appreciate your dedication to exploring breath mastery with my breathing buddy, and let's embark on a journey towards enhanced well-being through the power of the breath. So I appreciate any questions you have.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Before we do, Amy, could you stop screen sharing? I forgot this at the start. I'm going to remove your spotlight. We need, if anyone who feels comfortable can turn on their camera, we need just like the thumbs up, happy wave screenshot for social media for everybody. Be thinking of your question for Amy as we go through this, but great. Lots and lots of faces, everyone's smiling. Our general manager at Haynes, Avon O'Leary, likes to say, everybody say Haynes in a picture because you can't say Haynes without smiling. So say Haynes and give me a wave. Excellent. Okay, questions for Amy? And feel free to pop them in the chat as well.
Goodness, it's good to see all of you, because I did not have anybody up on my screen. There's no way I was going to look at anybody. So I pretty much covered everything. If you, like I said, if you need the exercises, they're on the Anatomy of Sound website, and you can be a free member. It just doesn't give you rotating content. Yes, Lee.
Hi, thank you so much for being here and doing this. It's wonderful to see all of this in action. I have one question. We know that breathing is a whole body activity. So I'm curious about how you talk about the connection between the diaphragm and the abdomen and the pelvic floor.
Well, the pelvic floor is the most difficult sometimes, because we all walk around sometimes with a like that. If y'all wonder what that, like, oh, that person's uptight. Well, yeah, that's a whole kind of feeling thing. It's hard to get into conversations about the pelvic floor sometimes in a lesson, but that's why we go to you, Lee. But for me, it's definitely just this area here. So we have appendage, the largest part of the body. And so I just kind of talk in terms of this area. And that's why all I needed was the rib cage and some, moving polymer underneath to show the floatingness, because the ease that you and I can experience is not easy when someone's super uptight in their pelvis. So I think it comes from guiding them to find just like that, the ball, we've got a ball, the big ball that you sit on, so yes, I do teach the absolute symbiotic relationship, but the pelvic floor is a conversation that has to be a little more matured, I think.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Has anyone done my breathing scales? Brandon, you've done my breathing scales. Somebody else is laughing. Who are you? Anna, have you done breathing scales? They're evil because it says at the end, Samuel Barron wrote, quarter equals 42, maybe in 1 year. So one day I had a message. Remember, we all had those machines and we had to press play, and I heard this long tone and I said, what is happening? And then it went up a half step and I thought, somebody is playing me a breathing scale at 42. It was Rachel Wolf. She left me a breathing scale on the machine. Don't get any ideas, people.
Amy, that's going to be the next email I send
No.
you. It's going to be a giant attachment.
Brandon, what do you think about breathing scales? Are you still here?
Oh, yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
They're a vibe, that's for sure.
What does that mean, Brandon?
It is an expansive way to just invest in a slow moment that focuses on something so intensely.
I used to hate them. I was 17 and Sam Barron would want them at the beginning of the lessons. And I would think to myself, I don't want to do them. I hate them. Why do I have to do this? And I would hate it while I was in it because the inner dialogue was screaming, I'm not going to make it. I'm not going to make it. And I think a few months into studying with Samuel Barron, I realized the blessing in the slow airspeed was something I probably should dial into. It is a vibe. Yes. Great. Yeah, I like that. It's a vibe. So try 88. And like I said, if you can't do 88, just 120, 116, 112 to start there. Quarters, slurred up and down without breathing. Anybody have any questions?
If not, this could be a wonderful time, as we have been throughout the day, to
take a break.
Take a break. Take a bio break, take a snack break. And we'll be back right before 4 o'clock with Angela McCuiston.
Well, thank you, Haynes, for creating this environment
Amy.
for our friends and family. Happy New Year.
All right, welcome back, everyone. This is our last session of what has been a wonderful day. Thank you all for sticking it out until the very end here. We are delighted now to be joined by Angela McCuiston, who is, I think she has a title of, or a string of titles and certifications after her name that is longer than her actual name, but just trust that she is everything you need in a personal trainer, a fitness coach, anything like that. And she is the owner of Music Strong, which is a business that is specifically focused on fitness and wellness for musicians. So I'm going to share the Google Doc here. If you are just joining us, pop into the chat what your pain point is, or pain points, if there are multiple, that you would hopefully have Angela address in her session today. And remember that we will have a Q&A at the end where you can ask her directly. But without further ado, I'm going to spotlight Angela for everyone, and then I will also share your doc. Angela, go for it.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. I'm really excited about today's session. And what I've planned to do, as you can see in the Google Doc, is we are going to be addressing the top 3 pain points for musicians. Now, there are multiple, but if you look in the chat already, you can see a lot of these are the same. We see neck, we see shoulder, neck, shoulder, neck, shoulder. We see some trigger finger. We see some TMJ, and we see some other things. But as I am not a physical therapist, I am a musician fitness specialist, personal trainer, corrective exercise specialist, but I'm not a physical therapist. They're 2 different things. So I'm not particularly able to address TMJ. If any of you are part of the National Flute Association, there is a member on the Performance Health Committee. His name is Dr. Chip Shelton, and he is a dentist and a flutist. And we have talked, we've talked quite extensively about TMJ, but he is the person that you should address those questions to. If I can get a copy of the questions in the chat, I will see if I can reach out and send those messages to you guys to addressing these things, or at least put them on a public platform where I can address those later. But I'm really interested in hearing what you guys have to say. So we're going to try to go through these as quickly as possible. If you have any of these implementations, like a lacrosse ball or a foam roller or a massage gun or bands or dumbbells or any of the things that I have, please make them available. If not, feel free to just watch this later and follow along. So when it comes to pain points, the reason we're dealing with what we're dealing with, when we think about playing, we're playing this way. The left arm comes in front, the right arm goes out to the side. So if you just put your arms here, this feels natural, yes? Right. We put our arms here. It doesn't feel so natural. What do you notice? Where you feel things tight or weird is probably where things feel natural on the other side. And that's actually a sign of an imbalance. Doesn't mean that imbalances are bad. So what I like to say is, if you have a baseball pitcher, they pitch with one arm. Does that mean they have an imbalance between that arm and the non-pitching arm? Does that mean that the non-pitching arm needs to be as strong as the pitching arm? No, but things can get out of balance when things are too strong on one side and not strong enough on the other, or we don't have enough endurance in the muscles that need to do the work of, for our instance, playing the flute. So if we hold these muscles in a long standing playing position, say 3, 4, 5 hours, 6 hours, however long your rehearsal sessions are, even in a day spread over time, if the body is not conditioned to be able to deal with that, a lot of times we get pain, we get injury, we get overuse syndrome, a lot of different things. So the 3 areas I'm going to talk about today are neck, and these are broad areas: neck, wrist, to include the forearm. So these are not completely anatomically correct, but quote, wrist, shoulder, aka between the shoulder blades, upper back, and neck. So those 3 areas. So when we're dealing with these areas, and feel free to drop any questions you have in the chat, the 3 things that you need to remember when it comes to dealing with strength training and corrective exercise, and to know what to do safely and well, what you have to know is that you want to calm down overactive muscles. To be generalized, those are going to be the muscles on the front of our body. It tends to be in the front. You're going to have these muscles here, sternocleidomastoid. You're going to have your chest, the muscles of the chest. You're also going to be potentially hunched forward. So if you can think of that, so all the, like the anterior aspect of your shoulders, the chest, all this stuff, right? So we come this way. That makes the stuff on the back side feel tight, feel weak, and it complains in pain, but it's actually weak. So a lot of times when we get areas that hurt, it's because they're weak. It's not because they're tight. They can also be tight and weak. So stretching them might feel good, but it doesn't make it better. So if there's one thing you remember from this, and you're like, well, what do I press on? What do I stretch? What do I not? The thing to remember is if you press on something or you stretch something and it feels good, but it doesn't get better, it could potentially mean it is weak. If you press on something or you stretch it and it gets better, it means it's tight. Okay, so our first step is that we are going to calm down or roll or massage the overactive muscles. After this, we are going to stretch those muscles that were tight, the overactive muscles, right? Once those have calmed down, the underactive, they're inhibiting the muscles that are, like, to be simplistic, the muscles on the front side of our body, they tend to be really tight, right? So if we're tight here, we can calm down and relax those. These muscles have a chance to kick on. They've been inhibited by the overactive muscles, right? So we can have a chance to calm those down and bring those back and kick those on. So that is the order that you want to do it. So in other words, that's why you don't stretch after. That's a whole nother conversation to have. But in regards to this, that's why you stretch first. You only stretch the muscles that are tight first, and then you address the muscles that are weak. So our first step is we're going to be doing the upper back, AKA between the shoulder blades. This is going to go into the neck, right? So if you have any of these implementations, and I'm going to show you what I've got here. I've got a foam roller. If you've got one of those, that's great. So it looks like this. We have several of them. And I get a lot of questions on, well, what's the right foam roller for me? As you can see, I've got one that's knobby. I've got a long one. This is a really huge 3-foot one that's really soft. I've got this one that's got all kinds of things with it. The thing is that none of them are bad or good. So I want to take that out first. What we're looking for with a 3-foot, it allows you, as opposed to the 1-foot, it allows you to be able to roll from one thing to another without getting up and changing your position, right? Second thing is, this one is markedly softer, high density one, which doesn't have a lot of give. So if you have osteoporosis, that could also be a no-no. You want to be very careful about this. If you don't, but you're very tight and very tense, you want to start with soft and go towards hard. Okay, so that's your that's how we deal with that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to roll on your upper back with your roller. And this is probably the only time I tell you to roll on a bone. A lot of times I'll say, don't roll on a bone. You don't ever want to roll on a joint. That is absolutely true. This is the one caveat to that, because we're not directly rolling on bones, okay? And if you guys have any questions, drop in the chat. I'll try to get to them right here at the end, and we'll do some Q&A. But also, if you look at the end, look at the handout, you can reach me at my contact information above. I'd love to get some emails from you or reach out on social media in case I don't get to your questions, okay? So first thing you're going to do, when you roll your upper back, and what we're doing here is we're not trying to get to the muscles directly. We're really trying to increase a little bit more mobility in your upper back. We call that the thoracic spine. And something else to notice, you don't ever want to roll your low back. Ever, never, ever. Unless a PT tells you otherwise. Your low back has already got this kind of bend into it, and call that a lordotic curve. It's not meant for more pressing, right? The upper back has what we call a kyphotic curve. It goes this way. It can take some pressing. So where the safe point is if you find right below your shoulder blades, that's about where you want to be, right? So right in the middle of your back, right at the base of your shoulder blades, you're going to put your head in your hands. Let it rest. We're not pulling. We're not doing any kind of sit-up kind of deal here, right? You're going to let your head rest in your hands like a hammock, okay? You're going to bring your elbows in front of your face. And the reason we're pulling your elbows in front of your face is so you can spread those scapula, your shoulder blades. You're going to spread them apart so you can let that roller get in between and calm it down. So you're going to put those elbows in front of your face. All you're going to do is lift your rear end up, and you're just worth a couple of times, maybe 5. You know, you'll know when you've had enough. And then you're going to put your rear end back on the ground. Oh, that's so nice. Every time I do this, it feels so good. You're going to lean back. And as you can see, I'm almost touching the ground. Actually, you should be touching the ground. You should be close to it anyway. A lot of people, when they've never done this, they do this. And they feel like they're not going anywhere. It's just because the area here is so tight. But the more you do this, the farther you're going to get back. And think about this. How often do we this kind of posture where we go back? We don't do a lot of it, right? So doing this every day is really key to your mobility. So that's step number one. Step number two is we're going to use an implementation on the front of the body. Why? Because when the upper back hurts, this is right in between your shoulder blades. A lot of times the reason is because our arms go in the front of our body to play, especially the left. So I'm curious, who has pain on the left side of the shoulder blade? Left side behind the shoulder blade versus right side behind the shoulder blade. A lot of people get pain right side. I'm just curious. So if you drop that in the chat, that'd be great. But think about it. You pull your left arm in front to play, right? You also turn your head to the left and tilt it slightly. We don't go this way. We go this way. So anytime you go the opposite, you'll feel which muscles are tight if you're not sure. If we go this way, that means these are going to be tighter than these, generally speaking, not always. So if your tightness is here, we want to stretch here. So what we're going to do first, if you have a lacrosse ball, which looks like this, and the reason I like a lacrosse ball better is because it doesn't have a lot of give. See that? It doesn't, it's tacky. So people say, can I use a tennis ball or a racquetball ball? The difference is those are squishy and tennis balls have fuzz, which means they're going to slide instead of roll. So it's not ideal. What you can do, if you have one with you, take this ball, put it between your chest and the wall. You're going to put your elbow behind you, relax your shoulder, and press your body into the wall, rolling back and forth, pretending my hand is the wall here. Rolling back and forth until you find the spot that feels like, oh my gosh, that's tight. A lot of times, if you find your collarbone here, it's going to be down to the side of your collarbone in the middle of your chest here, or down by your armpit, right on the side of this meaty area. So if you just grab here, you might find something, okay? So that's where we're looking. We're looking for a tender point. When you find that point, the goal is not to press as hard as you can. The goal is to press, and that pain should go down. Now, this is one of the only areas that I find, on myself anyway, that it doesn't change so much as in the other areas, okay? So if you find that for yourself, that you press on it and it doesn't really change, count to 30 and then move your arm and tell me if it doesn't feel like it moves better, right? So I've got more videos on this, but due to lack of time, I'm not going to show all that. Another thing that you can do is use something like this. I'm sure you guys have seen like massage guns. This is the Jaku Muscle Blaster V2. I've got a link to it. But what I like about this is this is the big one. They also make a tiny one that's about this size, right? What I like about it is that it's got 5 different speeds. The battery lasts forever. You can make it portable. And so what you're going to do is you can use it on all those really awkward areas like the front of your shoulder, your chest, your thigh, all those areas that are really hard to get to, right? And what that's going to do is it not only calms down the area that tends to be over tight, it also decreases pain sensitivity, which is really nice. And if you have osteoporosis or osteopenia, this is also a really good option for you because putting pressure on a bone, especially when you're using a foam roller, if it's advanced, that's contraindicated. We don't want to be doing that because we don't want you to break bones foam rolling, right? So this is a really simple, easy, gentle way to get the muscles to relax without a massage therapist and without putting yourself at risk, okay? So that's number 1. After we calm down those muscles, we're going to stretch them. So if you have seen any of my stuff in the past, I don't know, 10, 15 years, you've probably seen this chest stretch before. So I also wanted to show you a couple of others that might be a little different. And all of these videos are on my YouTube channel. So I know we're going to go through them kind of quick, but you can access all of them on my YouTube channel. What you're going to need is a doorway, or like I have here, you need a corner. So what you're going to do is you're going to put your arm at 90 degrees on that corner. So what it's doing here is this corner is holding my arm. In other words, I'm not out like this. You want to think this whole part of your forearm is being held by the door, okay, or the corner. So you're going to step right up to it. What I like to do is, if this is my left arm, I'm going to step forward with my left foot. Gives me a little bit more mobility, right? This is the key. You've seen these doorway stretches. We don't want to do those because that's a passive stretch. It's not that it's bad, but in this instance, that's not what we're going for. We're going for more of an active stretch. We're trying to get the muscles that are weak to, quote, kick on, which I understand, is not exactly anatomically correct, but it's a simplistic version of saying it. So we're trying to get them to wake up and be like, oh, hey, this is my job, right? So what you're going to do, put your arm here. This is my shoulder blade. I want you to squeeze it towards your spine. So if you're going to bring it in, it looks like this, right? Squeeze. You're going to twist away from the wall. So if I'm holding this way, I'm going to squeeze, I'm going to twist away. We're not going forward, we're twisting away, right? That gets your pec major. If you want to go up a little higher, say you don't really feel much, coming down here gets pec minor. You're still squeezing back. And this is, I see this a lot, people trying to squeeze as hard as they can and twist as hard as they can. This is gentle, right? This is very, very minor, right? So you're squeezing and twisting, and you should be able to talk and hang out. Your knees should be bent. We're not lacking our knees. We're hanging out, right? Nice knees, you're going to hold for 30 seconds. Come out of that really easily. Third thing we're going to do is stretch the front of your shoulder and your bicep. These go together. So if I'm starting here, right, twisting away, I'm going to come back to center, bring my arm out to the side. I like to have my hand pointing down. You can play around with it. Feel whichever feels best to you is the area you need to stretch. Everybody's different, right? But if I go palm facing the ground and then twist away, I get a nice stretch all through here. So another thing I get is sometimes people say it doesn't feel so great, or like the shoulder feels a little unstable. So what you can do in that instance, instead of just having your hand here to the side and twisting out, support your whole arm on the wall, right? We're not trying to go as hard as we can, any of it. So we're just going to twist gently away and hold, again, hold for 30 seconds. You should feel a really nice stretch through here, okay? That's all. All right, so those are the couple of stretches that we're going to do. The third one I want to show you, and this is one of my favorites for shoulder, impingement. Now, I'm not saying you have to have impingement for this to happen, but traction is one of my favorite things. If you need it, you will know. When you do this, if it feels like, oh, that's so nice, like such a huge relief, you need it. If you're sitting there going, I don't feel anything, what am I doing? Means you don't need it, okay? Impingement, what we're thinking of that is that if you try to lift your arm overhead and you get kind of a pinching sensation here, and it doesn't really feel good, or you know, maybe even your arms go numb a little bit when you play. If you lift up and you get a pinch or something like that, that's number one indication you may have an impingement. It just means that the head of your humerus, which is the arm bone, and the clavicle here had gotten squished a little too tightly together, and there's not enough room for them to move. So this is how we get rid of it. And if you look on my YouTube channel, the exercise on how to get rid of punchy shoulders, this is how you do it. So I've got a big old band here. It's a giant rubber band. I got it from, it's on my website. You don't have to have exactly like this. You can use one of these with handles. That's fine. I like to put it up high, but you can also put it on something below, like a sofa cushion. The base of your sofa. So like a sofa leg, right? You can put it there. The key here, you're going to put your hand up through underneath. So you're not coming above, you're coming underneath. The band is going to hold you, right? And then you're going to come back and back and back and stick your hips back into, oh, that's nice. You're going to pull back until you feel this really lovely bit of space in your shoulder joint. This one is passive. You're just going to hang out here until you feel like, oh yeah, I've had enough of this. I'm going to show you 3 ways to do it, but this is the one that's most commonly felt, that feels good. If you don't have something high to hook it to, like I said, you can put it on something on the floor. I've done this on a chair before. You're just going to be kneeling doing the same thing instead of standing up tall, right? So you can come back, relax, and let that arm just go. It should feel amazing if you need it. If you don't need it, you're going to be wondering what the big deal is about. So to make this a little more effective, what we do is called PNF stretching. And what that means is that you're going to bring your shoulder blade, this is my shoulder blade, you're going to bring your shoulder blade slightly down. So we're not doing reps like this, right? You're ever so gently going to pull your shoulder blade back just a little bit for 3, 4, 5, relax. You can do this for 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 7 seconds. I'm going to do it again. Pull down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, relax. Every time you do this, if you need it, you will notice that your arm goes a little bit farther, okay? It just helps your body overcome its stretch reflex a little faster. So that's one way. This is one way. Second way is to go out this way. It looks very similar to what we're doing on the wall. It's not appropriate for everybody. So when you're doing this, please don't fling yourself around. Be gentle and take your time. See if any of this feels good. You can also hook it to something on the ground and have it point from the other way. You'll know if you need it right away. When you find it, it'll be just this beautiful sense of release, right? Third version, bring your arm overhead and lean forward. You'll feel a stretch. It's great for people who have really tight triceps. So that's what traction is, okay? So that is, that's how we mobilize all the stuff of the upper back before we strengthen it. So strengthening it, what are we gonna do? Can we bring it down just a little bit? There we go. Whoop, too far. Okay, so yeah, so when we strengthen it, we're gonna do 1 to 2 sets of roughly 10 to 15 repetitions. The sets and reps are not as important as the tempo you do it at, because we're going for time under tension, right? So if you've gotten my book is called The Musician's Essential Exercises. There's an exercise in there called prone tees. The reason I like this is because you can do it anywhere with no equipment. You can do it backstage, you can do it at home, you can do it on the road. It's really easy, but I wanted to give you guys some extra, some other things just in case that didn't work out as much as you wanted, right? And you wanted some other things. So the 2-2-4, I'm going to show you what a prone tee is. And I have to caveat this by showing you some basic weightlifting forms. So if you're strength training at all, there's 3 basics that you need to know. Number 1, you're going to pull in your belly button, right? So in other words, we don't want to be loosey-goosey, all the spine moving, right? Pull in your belly button like someone's going to come up and punch you. What would you do? You'd go, and see what happens when I go, all of this moves, and it's locked and loaded here. That's your transverse abdominis, your TBA for sure. And you're going to hold it, right? So just pull in your belly button. And notice I'm still talking. I'm not, oh my gosh, I can't talk. That's if you're doing it too hard, right? Also, you cannot lock your knees and draw in your belly button at the same time. If you find your knees are locking, you're not engaging here. If there's one thing you get out of this session, please learn how to pull in your belly button throughout the day, because it activates your TBA throughout the day. You can do it standing in line at the grocery store, pumping gas, whatever you're doing, practicing even a little bit. You can just stop and go, am I drawing in? Okay, letting go. Am I doing it on purpose or not, right? So drawing in, number 1. Number 2, I want you to do a little bit of a shoulder roll. You notice we come up, then we go back, and then we go down, and then we go forward, right? It's not a complete circle. When you come up, we want to do the opposite. We do a lot of this without even realizing it because we're here, right? What's the opposite? There. So if I pull my shoulder blades back and down, now I'm not saying you have to do this hard and you have to do this all the time, but pairing that with this locks and loads your lower spine. This locks and loads your upper spine. So now you've got a super stable spine. So you're going to pull your shoulder blades back and down just a little bit. Draw in. Third thing, hips are a hinge. Not completely accurate if we're talking completely anatomical, because they're not a hinge joint, they are a ball and socket joint. But I want you to think of how they move, because when we move, we tend to think of moving our hips from here. This is not our hips. These are our hips. You find the crease of your hip joint and push back. Notice it moves. It can also move side to side, but it moves this way. And when I move my hip joint, push my fingers in my hip joint and move back, notice how my spine can stay completely stable and not having to flex it. Now, if you lock your knees, you're not going to be able to do any of this. Don't lock your knees, number 1. Okay, so belly button in, shoulders back, hinge. Now that we've got all that in place, you're going to put your hands out like this. I want you to lift them up in a T and come back down. Now, if I do this all day long, I will feel nothing, especially if I do this or this, right? Everything I just said, we're going against gravity. And this is where the 2-2-4 comes in handy. Belly button in, pull the shoulders down, stick your rear end back, your knees are soft. Right now, we're going against gravity. We're going to go thumbs to the ceiling, come up for 2, squeeze your shoulder blades together. without locking your knees, without doing this or this. All of this stays the same. That's what makes it hard, right? So we're going to come up, hold for 2, and then we're going to come down for 4, and I'm still squeezing my shoulder blades. Notice my knees haven't moved. I haven't gone this way. I haven't gone this way, right? So if you come up for 2, hold for 2, down for 4, and I'm squeezing my shoulder blades the whole time. Oh, also when you come up, you should look like a T, not a V. So if you come up and you're like, I'm good. Oh, I'm not a T. It's always a little higher than you think, right? So those are T's, and Y's are a lot harder. I don't give a lot of people Y's because they can't do them. You can try these lying flat on your face. You pull your shoulders down and you lift your arms up in a Y. Now I can do this all day long, but if I pull my shoulders down and lift up, it's a lot harder. You'll feel it right here. So the third thing I want to give you for that is an exercise called a scarecrow. This one is a little weird. Oh, but when you do it, it feels really good when you do it right? So belly button in, shoulders back. Stick your butt out. Now we're going against gravity. So gravity is our weight. You're going to come up and out. So if you look at me, my arms are up and out to the side, right? So if I was going to go, I would look like a scarecrow, right? Pretend I've got a broomstick across my shoulders, right? What I look like is, what I think of is that I'm bringing this part of the back of my arm towards the ceiling. I'm going to come up, hold, and down slow. So what you'll notice I'm not doing is this. I'm not letting go. Belly button's still in, shoulders still back, the weight's on my heels, I'm still pulling in my belly button, right? I'm just bringing my elbows behind me. So you do those at a 2-2-4 tempo, it should also be kind of difficult. All right, so last one I want to show you. We've got, shoot, I forgot the serratus anterior. These are fun. These are also in my book, but not as much. So when we've got upper back pain, a lot of times what happens is that the muscles here tend to be weak, the serratus anterior. They pull our shoulders back and they need to pull us forward. Well, we come forward and they're not strong enough to pull us back. So if you take, I've got 3 different options, and I'm not going to do all 3 because we've got to move on. They're all on my YouTube channel. But one of my favorites is if you have a foam roller, you put it up against the wall, it's going to look just like this. Y'all see me, I hope? All right. 1 foot in front of you, belly button's in. You're going to pull your shoulders down. Press into the wall here. The important part is you're pulling your shoulders down while you press up. Okay? Pull your shoulders down, press up. What I've got is, if you have like a towel or something, you can do this one arm. Once you do the 2 arm, it makes more sense. But put that there, you're going to lock out your elbow. And a lot of people can't do this. They can't lock their elbow and pull their shoulder down at the same time, right? So if you can, this is great. You're going to pull your shoulder down, lock out your elbow, push up. Push up. You should feel it here. If that's not your jam, if it's not working out, you can do what's called a straight arm pull down, which is like I'd have over here, and you pull straight down. The thing is, you want to lock your elbows. Anytime you lock your elbows, you transfer force to your core. We don't want to lock your knees because that takes away the strength that you have here from pulling in, right? Okay, so that's what all that looks like. And the only other things that I would say, we can do rows. And this, the reason I'm dwelling so long on this instead of neck and wrist is because upper back tends to feed into neck and wrist, right? It's the core issue. So I'm talking about this one first. If you have dumbbells, this is going to increase some of the endurance in the muscles that you use to play a lot, because think how we play. Up, out to the side, up to the front. So these are front and side raises, okay? How you do it, and you don't even have to have dumbbells to do this, so don't worry about it. If you don't have it, just follow along with me with your hands, right? I want you to pull your belly button in, shoulders back, right? Your elbows are going to maintain a slight bend, and you're going to bring your elbows up and out to the side. You'll notice my hands are lower than my elbows. Elbows are lower than the shoulders. You don't ever want to come up here. We're not trying to go flying like a Victoria's Secret angel with the giant wings, right? We're not going for this. We're trying to increase the endurance of the shoulder muscles. And how we do that is, if I don't use the dumbbells, we're going to go just like this. You're bringing, these are the muscles that are working. You're trying to bring them up against gravity. When we add weight, we're just adding weight against gravity. Some people can't do this. So what I say is try it this way. You've got a 90-degree bend in your elbows, up and out. The thing is, to me, this is simple, but what I've found is a lot of people can't get this. So what I end up seeing is this. See the difference between this and this? This is the difference. So we have a short lever here with the arms. We have a long lever here. We're going for short lever. If we go here, we're not really doing much of anything but the funky chicken dance. And that's not what we're going for, right? We're trying to get these muscles to lift up and out to the side. So front, so sideways looks like this, or like this. No shrugging, right? Again, these are all my YouTube channel, so I know I'm going kind of fast. Up and out to the side. To the front is the same way. Notice I'm not going way up here and I'm not flinging myself around. It has nothing to do with height. You don't want to go above shoulder height, right? Start with like 2, 3, 5 pound weights. These are 5s. This is fine. If you go up, 2, hold, 2, down, 2, 3, 4. Oh my gosh, I'm tired. And that was 1 rep, okay? Start with like 3 pound weights and go for 5, 10 reps, okay? All right, so we're gonna move on. We've got neck. Here is real quick. Wow, we got some great stuff. Is there any way to do the back roll without getting on the floor? With a foam roller, no, there is not. However, if you have a hoodie with an actual hood, yes, there is. You take that foam roller. Sorry, that's not a foam roller. You take that lacrosse ball and you can put it in the hood. Boom, put it up against you in the wall and roll back and forth. Now, the only thing is that's going to get the muscles in between your shoulder blades. That's not going to get your the spine, which is what we were going for. So yes and no. Yeah. So, okay. So we're going to get into neck real quick. Does anybody have any questions on upper back? Okay. Great. Hypermobility, hands, wrist, side, left shoulder. Okay, great. So, all right, real quick. We're going to get into neck. So if you've got neck issues, sure thing. Sure thing, Beth. Okay, so neck issues. You can palpate the neck and you can massage it, right? We want to massage the things that get tight and then stretch them and then relax what's, strengthen what's weak after we massage and stretch and relax what's tight. A lot of times, if you think about how this works, when your neck gets tight, think about the postures that we are in. We go this way. Also, look what happens when my chin jets forward. It's hard to try it yourself. Do you notice that your knees lock or that your back moves when you jut your chin really far forward? It changes your whole posture. That's why we say, you know, when think of, if you've been in Alexandria, think about your head dangling from the ceiling. It automatically aligns, right? And that's because that's how we're supposed to be, is not this way, but this way. So if we draw in here, it helps with here. But for the sake of flute players, what we're going to deal with is left versus right. So the quick and dirty answer here is, what I want you to do, if you see this, if I go left, you see this muscle here? This is called your SCM, your sternocleidomastoid. It turns your head from side to side, flexes you forward. If you find it, I want you to find it, squish it between your fingers. Ideally, this is done in your bed when you're laying flat, you don't have gravity messing with you. But if you find a trigger point or something that hurts, hold it. So right there. Ooh. And I'm not pressing into my neck. I'm pressing this way, very gently, right? So if you find that spot and you hold it, you should let it go. The pain should subside. On a 1 to 10 pain scale, you never want to be above a 7. Okay, you want it to go down to about a 1 or a 2. You find it on the left or on the right side, you might notice it's much, right? So when you think we go this way, this is contracting to bring us this way, but this is contracting to bring us down this way. So you might have a couple spots that are different from one side to the next. Here's how you stretch them. Take your left hand, put it in the small of your back, look straight at me. Right hand goes on your left temple, okay? You're gonna bring your right ear towards your right shoulder. That stretches this muscle here, which is called your upper trapezius, right? We're gonna try to get your SCM. So I want you to take that hand, go right above the arch of your left eyebrow and pull back. Now, if you ever had any kind of head trauma, TBIs, whiplash, any of that, and this doesn't feel good, or you get that feeling, don't do it. It's not appropriate for everyone. Okay, so you can be very, very, very gentle with this and it's going to be okay, right? So if it does feel good, you're going to hang out here 10, 15 seconds. If it feels like super tight and you want to go a little farther, what you're going to do is what we did with the band over here. You're going to press your head gently forward into your fingers. 3, 2, 1, and then relax. We call that again PNF stretching. You can do it on the other side. You're probably going to find that the left side versus right, there's a much difference, right? We matched on it. We stretched it. Now we're going to strengthen it. If you don't have, a lot of people, this is called a TheraBand. People say that I have these wide flat bands from my physical therapist. It's called a TheraBand. They're great, right? If you have one of these, great, grab it. If not, don't worry about it. We can do an isometric, but here's the exercise. You're going to put it around your head like a headband. I want you to take it and pull it away. Turn it to the left. Now look to the right and come back. And again, 2, 2, 4. Are your knees locked? They shouldn't be. Is your belly button in? It should be. Come out, hold, and back, slow. Okay, now I want you to try the opposite side just so you can notice the difference, how much easier it is on the left side. If I go to the left, turn to the left. It's a lot easier, right? Let me back up. We should be doing a chin tuck with this. Raise your hand if you know what a chin tuck is. Who has ever heard of a chin tuck from their physical therapist? I mean, like everybody, right? Relationship with these. Sometimes they work great and sometimes I feel like they don't do diddly, but they shouldn't hurt you, okay? So the best way to make this exercise effective is to do a chin tuck and then twist. So I'll demonstrate first, right? By the way, if you're doing a double chin and you look very unattractive, you're doing it exactly right. You're gonna pull straight out, tuck your chin down a little bit and push straight back. What I like to think is that my jawline is on rails, like I'm moving it back on like a train. Down, back. Okay, that's a chin tuck. This is a band resisted chin tuck. We're just gonna move it to the left. Do you look ridiculous? Good, you're doing it right. Go down and back. Look to the right. Relax. Tuck down, back, to the right. If you want to get rid of that chin tuck, you can just do a bunch of these while you hold the chin tuck. That's fine. I would start with 5 to 10 real slow and add to that. The dump truck exercise that you see before that, again, with the neck, it gets real specific with people. Not everybody this is great for. So, but I'm going to show you what that looks like. Dump truck, actually don't use this. Dump truck. So when your head does this right, you look like a dump truck emptying its load, right? It just gives you a little bit more mobility. So I want you to find this kind of little indent below your ears. And I know this is probably not completely anatomically correct. So Lee, if you're watching, help me out with this because I'm going to say this wrong, but I'm thinking like the Atlas or the C1. And I know it's not quite right, but think of it for now, think of it like something like this, and we're going to tilt back off that pivot point, right? What you're going to do is you're going to tilt down and back. So now my ears are over my shoulders. I want you to hold that chin tuck while you dump your head like a dump truck emptying its load from the top. Relax. Tuck down and back. Hold it while you go back. Not everybody can do this. Not everybody feels good doing this, but if you need it, you're going to know that it feels good. It's one of those like, oh, I'm glad I know about this. Or other people like, why am I doing this? It's a waste of my time, right? Same with the traction. It's different for everybody, but I wanted to give it to you, okay? So thanks, Lee. All right, real quick, we're gonna get in. We are running out of time, so we're gonna get real quick into wrist. All right. You guys have probably seen this. Blair, can you go down a little bit with the wrist? If you have, this is my favorite thing for massaging the muscles of the forearm. And the reason we're talking about the forearm is because the muscles of the forearm are the ones that attach to the elbow and they attach to the wrist, okay? The wrist, anatomically, the wrist is actually these massive bones in your hand. So if you find your fingers, I want you to like find your middle finger like I've got mine here, right? I want you to touch and come down until you feel like that big mass of bones right there, but suddenly you don't feel that long bone anymore, but you feel a bunch of other bones, right? Move it. That's the first joint of your finger, right? That's where it meets your wrist. This is where the motion comes from. We think of our wrist as this. This is where your arm bones meet your wrist, okay? So when we think wrist pain, I know we're usually thinking about here, but just wanted to get that out there, okay? So when we talk about, quote, wrist pain and pain right in here, and y'all correct me if you've got issues in here, or if it's here or here, let me know. But generally what we find is when we get pain, a lot of times the site of pain is not the source of pain. So if this hurts, this isn't the culprit. If your knee hurts, unless you've got some acute trauma going on, a lot of times it can be from muscles pulling on it one direction or another. It's from your hips, it's from your ankles, it's from lack of motion, etc. So the knee isn't the problem. In this case, the wrist might not be the problem. It might be because of how we hold the instrument, especially on the left side, right? So I had tendonitis. That was my very first injury at 4, which exacerbated itself right here. And it's from holding the instrument like this, and the rest of my body just wasn't strong enough. It was straight overuse. When we think of overuse injuries, I don't want you to think of just relaxing and stretching muscles. It's also that we need to increase the strength and endurance of the muscles that we are using so they can do the job we want them to do, right? So what we need to do though is calm down those muscles first. So y'all about to see my beautiful little setup here with I have my laptop on a ladder here. It works well, right? So what I'm going to use is something called an arm aid. If you guys have seen this, it's my absolute favorite thing. They developed it for rock climbers to be able to massage their own forearms. Because when do we ever massage our forearms? We don't, and we should. And so this is how it's going to look. You don't ever roll over a joint and you don't roll over a bone. So I'm going to try to put this little ball, and if you don't have one of these, you can grab a lacrosse ball like I had over there, and you're going to roll it right through here. We're going to look for tender points right in here. Okay, right in here. And a lot of times you'll find them up in the meaty portion right here. Like if you wiggle your fingers, you'll see those finger muscles, they start up here. You'll see them, right? If they're tight, doing this on a regular basis can calm them down. So using this here can help with your fingers extensors. If we go under here, that's your flexors. And a lot of times your pain points are going to be down in here, okay? So for the sake of time, I'm not going to go through that, but that's what I would use first. Second thing is we're going to stretch those areas, okay? So how we stretch them. Don't put pressure on your wrists. We're not trying to push at all. So if you had tender points here, we're going to do that. If you had tender points here, we're going to do that. If you had both, do both. But to start out, you want your wrists directly underneath your shoulders. Fingers go pointing directly towards you. And if your hands don't go all the way flat, that's fine. They don't have to. Don't force them. Just go where they go, right? They only go here, that's fine. Touch your fingertips together. So you should make like little tulip bowls, right? That's what it should look like. Yeah, and you want to make sure your elbows aren't bent. So if step 1, hands directly underneath your shoulders. Step 2, wrists flat or palms flat. If they can't go flat, that's fine, go wherever they can, but make sure your elbows stay straight. Touch your fingertips. Now, try to lift your knuckles off the floor. It shouldn't be possible. If you lean forward, you can cheat. No cheating. Cheating isn't allowed. You're going to try to bring your knuckles off the floor. You're going to hold for 20 seconds. Come out of that nice and easy. Relax for 10 seconds. Repeat for 30. Okay? Reason you're going to do this is that's that PNF stretching again. When you try to lift these knuckles, that activates here and turns this off because the law states that you cannot have 2 opposing muscle forces, working at the same time. So if I'm trying to do a bicep curl, my triceps can't extend my arm at the same time. So if we're trying to get this to calm down, and I try to lift my knuckles, this kicks on, this is forced to shut off. That's what makes it so effective, right? Come out of that nice and easily. Resist the urge to shake your hands, please. You can do some of these, that should feel nice, but no violence, okay? For the underside, you're gonna go like this, hands splayed wide if you can. We're not pressing at all, just do what's within your comfort level, right? You can only go here, that's fine. Same thing, try to lift your fingertips. If I go forward, I can cheat, we're not looking for that. You shouldn't be able to, you're just trying to, and that will activate here and force us to calm down. When you come out of that, come out nice and easily and rotate like this. So instead of shaking, right? So the last couple things, we deal with that because now we relax those overactive muscles, but now we also have to increase their strength. You've probably seen these. You do some wrist curls and you can do them with little, it's a 4-pounder, but doesn't have to be anything this big. The important thing is when you do this, see how my entire arm is supported on my leg. You want the bend of your wrist at the bend of your elbow. And you're gonna come up for 2, hold for 2, down for 4. Do that 10 to 12 times to tell me if you aren't tired. If you're not tired, good. It means you either need a heavier weight or you're pretty strong and you don't need it. Now go around the other side. 1, 2, hold 2, down 4, right? That's one of the easiest ways. Another couple things that you can do real quick are you can take a rubber band, and you'll see this in the rubber band extensions. Put a rubber band around your fingers. Come in and go back. A lot harder than it looks, right? Second thing is we want to go the opposite because going out will strengthen these. And we want to do 12 to 15 of these really slow. Again, it's time under tension because that builds the strength and endurance of these muscles to be able to play our instruments. This side, we want to grip, right? So you see people doing gripping exercises. You can use squish balls, that's fine. Here's one of my favorite things. You can see they integrate all of these for your full body. This is where it's fun. This is where it gets into like gym stuff. If you're in the gym wondering what to do a farmer's walk. And what that looks like. I want you to pick up the heaviest thing you got. For me, this is I don't know. I think this is a 25-pound weight. Okay, so I'm gonna take these 2, I'm gonna put one of these in each hand, and I'm gonna do what's called a farmer's walk. So I'm gripping it, right? So I'm gonna grip these 2 weights. I'm gonna pull my belly button in, shoulders back and down, and I'm gonna go for a walk, nice and smooth and stable, so I'm not doing this when I'm walking. So if you walk, I'm gonna look real smooth. I don't have a lot of room to do this, but the key here is we're tying in the core to the shoulder to the grip. And the longer you hold this, the more your grip is gonna be utilized. And this was the question I had a long time ago is, does our grip, training your grip, does that affect the dexterity of your fingers? And the answer is no, they're different muscles. I seriously doubt any of us are going to overtrain our grip to the point that we can't play the flute. So don't worry about that. What we do find out is that there are studies done that showing that grip strength is directly proportionate to life longevity. So the stronger your grip, the longer you might live, which is, look it up, it's a weird thing. But think about it, isn't that the first test we give babies when they're born? We check their grip strength. It's an indication of health. So if you don't have a strong grip, it can be indicative of the rest of your body not being strong enough to play. So I know that was really quick, so let me get into Q&A and see what else we have. All right. We have frozen shoulder, trigger finger, let's see, neck and shoulders. All right. Does anybody have any specific questions, or I will go back here as well. Feel free to unmute or type in the chat. Neck and shoulders tight and sore, okay. Hypermobility is a good one, Rose. Here's the beautiful thing. With hypermobility, strength training is directly proportional to how stable you are. It's one of the best things that you can do for hypermobility. I'm hypermobile myself. And the stronger you are, the less excessive range of motion you have in your joints. So that's really helpful. Left shoulder, hands and wrists get tight, okay. Pain point is from both thumbs down to my wrist. Okay, does anybody have any questions? I know I rushed through this, but I was afraid of running out of time. So if you look on the bottom of the Google Doc, hopefully this all shows up right. I'm giving a 20% off coupon to anybody here. Just use the coupon code Haynes on my website, and you can get anything that I have mentioned here for 20% off. That's my big ticket items. That's the small stuff. That's my book, whether it's print or ebook or whatever. And I give free movement assessments and consultations. So I'd love to talk to anybody who has any questions. But you guys have, I hope I addressed everything. I've really never, I feel like I just ran through it so fast. But yeah, so there we go. There's the Google Doc again. Yeah, one more thought. Does anybody have any questions or anything I didn't get to today? There's just so much when it comes to strength training and trying to blaze through it. It's, you know, I don't want to give you guys some of the most absolute basic things if you've seen these before. You know, you do prone T's a bajillion times, or you do external rotations. You're like, yeah, I've seen this. Okay, well, let's give you something new. So if anybody has any questions, you can reach me at angela@musicstrong.com. You can reach me at all the social medias under Music Strong. Yeah, I really appreciate you guys being here. So thanks very much. And if you have any questions, we got another couple minutes, I think. Well, not really. I barely made it. Thank you so much for Haynes for putting this on. You guys are amazing. Is there a way that I can get this chat too? I've got some really fantastic questions in here. I'd
Yeah,
like
it should pop up when we download all the recordings. So we should be able to send it to you.
Beautiful.
And last thing, I forgot this up front. If anyone who feels comfortable could turn on their camera, we'll get the screenshot with Angela in here. And that'll be our last one for the day.
And then we're gonna take a couple minutes to wrap up after. So we're not gonna take a break, but please stay on because we'll want to just wrap up the day, get your greatest takeaways, and then we'll let you go because it's been a long day. But gosh, what a great session, Angela, to end on. So thank you. I caught just a little bit of the last part of it. And as a person who's an advocate for strength training, it's just like, I hear you, girl. It's amazing what you do. So thank you.
Thanks. I appreciate it.
So last screenshot of the day here. Give us a wave. Give us a smile. All right.
You guys rock. Thanks all so much.